Yo, Atlas speaking and welcome to part 12 of What If I Was Reborn in the Naruto world as Obito Uchiha with the Universal Gamer System. Let the tale begin. Chapter 266, Time for Reckoning. While what you're saying makes some sense, it feels like you just want to save money. If we cut costs on the ceremony, we only have to give one gift in return too. Obito grumbled internally before nodding and replying, I don't have any objections. We'll go with what the third Hokage has decided. Hiruzen nodded in satisfaction and said no more. Minato, standing nearby, smiled and picked up the conversation. That's it, then. There's nothing else to discuss, so go rest up. If it weren't something serious, and you weren't so elusive, neither I nor the third would have dragged you here like this. Ha ha ha. Obito chuckled and got up. All right then. See you both later. After Obito left the office, Hiruzen took a long drag from his pipe and couldn't help but sigh in admiration. They say heroes rise young. At his age, I hadn't accomplished anything at all. Still too busy staring at girls through glass marbles back then. Minato, you've really trained a good disciple. It makes me proud as well. Minato waved his hands in a humble manner. You're too kind, Lord Third. Truthfully, we younger ones all grew under your guidance. With those mutual compliments exchanged, both men's smiles deepened. Hiruzen continued with a grin. When Obito takes over as Hokage, our ties with Kiradakure and Yoru will only grow stronger. Not only that, but we may be able to bring the village of Yoru into an alliance, helping Konoha's future development. Minato's expression turned serious. Exactly. And with this recent major victory, Konoha is in a prime position to expand its influence across the shinobi world. Outside the Hokage's office, Obito was practically dancing with excitement, looking like a child given a brand new toy. Hokage! Soon I, Uchiha Obito, will be the fifth Hokage. Imitating Itachi's signature move, he leapt onto a power pole and gazed out at the village that would soon be his to lead. My dream. It's finally coming true, he murmured to himself. But before I become Hokage, there are a few unresolved debts to settle. Leaving behind a shadow clone, Obito's real body headed straight for the land of fields. Village of Yoru. Kakuzu sat in his bare-bones office, meticulously reviewing the year's financial records. After realizing that his administrative work brought in more wealth than doing missions ever did, Kakuzu had stopped taking jobs altogether. Instead, he built an office using Earth-release techniques and now worked from dawn till dusk on nothing but village finances. Even the most ruthless capitalist would weep at his dedication. After cross-checking the ledgers dozens of times, Kakuzu closed the account book, his eyes flashing with killing intent. It seems there's a discrepancy of a few coins. Just then, someone walked into his office, carefree and grinning. Hey there, Finance Minister. Hard at work? Kakuzu turned slowly, his beady green eyes locking onto the visitor. His tone was flat. Leader. I'm busy. What do you want? Ignoring Kakuzu's tone, Obito got straight to the point. The person I asked you to find, any news? Kakuzu nodded and pulled a scroll from a broken drawer, tossing it onto the shaky table. Zabuza and Haku spotted the target somewhere in the land of waves. It seems the target noticed them but didn't attack or even bother to hide their movements. Obito took the scroll and nodded thoughtfully. Oh, and... Just as Obito was about to leave, he turned back. I'll be taking over as Hokage soon. Figure out how the village of Yoru and Konoha can work together to secure greater benefits for both sides. Prepare 3 practical proposals before our next meeting. Kakuzu's green eyes narrowed, a flicker of emotion crossing his otherwise cold expression. I can smell the money already. Leave it to me. With a final nod, Obito disappeared. Land of Waves. In a quiet little village, a young woman with long, flowing black hair stood at the market, shopping for dinner ingredients. Her beauty was striking, and her figure was full and graceful. Let's have fish tonight. Maybe pair it with some bamboo shoots, she mused. After gathering her groceries, she hummed a cheerful tune as she walked home along the quiet path. A happy smile lit up her face. Seeing Mayuko-in every day makes me so happy. But suddenly, a cold voice cut through the air behind her. You seem happy. But does a quiet, peaceful life like this really belong to you? The one who once stirred up chaos and stopped at nothing to achieve her goals, can she really settle for an ordinary life? The woman's body trembled, and her basket fell to the ground with a loud thud. The fish she had just bought flopped helplessly on the dirt, gasping for air. So, the day has finally come, she thought bitterly as she slowly turned around. I should be grateful for the time I've spent by Mayuko-in's side, she reflected. But I still wish I could stay with him forever. Facing Obito, she gave a slight bow and spoke sincerely. Thank you for sparing me these past few years, cousin. I'm deeply grateful. Obito's sharp gaze didn't waver as he stared into her eyes. He saw peace, regret, worry, and longing, but not a trace of fear or hatred. His brow furrowed as his icy words fell from his lips. So you know why I'm here. Time to reckon with your sins, Uchiha Setsuna. Setsuna's eyes lowered. With a soft sigh, she replied, I know I've sinned deeply. I'm willing to die as atonement. Please, cousin, grant me this. Don't be sad for me, Mayuko-in. One day, when the storms come, you'll find a new umbrella. Obito sneered. Death is the lightest punishment I could give. If I truly wanted to punish you, I'd start with that little boyfriend of yours. Don't you agree? At those words, Setsuna's face went pale. She dropped to her knees. Please, cousin. This has nothing to do with Mayuko-in. I beg you, don't take my mistakes out on him. Obito stepped forward, towering over her. A cruel smile tugged at his lips. Setsuna, you're in no position to negotiate with me. Chapter 267, Justice for Nagato. Damn, this woman's chest is huge, just like the weight of her sins. Obito's eyes narrowed as he thought viciously. A flicker of panic flashed in Setsuna's eyes. Cousin, please spare Mayuko-in. If you have any grievances, take them out on me instead. Obito looked down at the pleading Setsuna. Suddenly, he grinned, the coldness on his face melting away. All right. I was just messing with you. If I had truly intended to kill you too, you'd already be dead by now. He reached out to help Setsuna up, smiling mischievously. I've always been clear about my grudges. Though you and I have never seen eye to eye. But since you saved Tsukumo's life, I'll spare yours in return. With Obito's help, Setsuna stood up, looking at him with disbelief, a hint of hidden hope flickering in her eyes. Really, cousin? Mayuko-in, maybe. I still have a chance to grow old with you. Obito nodded, his grin growing wider and wider until it nearly reached his ears. Ha ha ha. Of course, it's true. But that's just one debt settled. There are still 2 more to go. Setsuna's body tensed up instantly. Obito, however, ignored her and continued speaking at his own pace. They say an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. You took one of my teacher's eyes, so I'll take one of yours. You tried to use Jinjutsu to seize my body. I can't take your body, but I can take another eye. As he spoke, the smile on Obito's face turned icy, like it had been soaked in frost. I'll take both of your eyes, and then we'll be even. What do you say, Uchiha Setsuna? Setsuna was silent for a long time before finally nodding with great difficulty. I am willing to offer both eyes to atone for her sins. Obito nodded, his voice indifferent. Good. At that moment, he seemed to embody Danzo himself, his hands moved with precision and cruelty, reaching straight for Setsuna's eye sockets. Blood splattered. 2 crimson Sharingan eyes fell into Obito's palm. Setsuna gritted her teeth hard, swallowing the cry of pain that threatened to escape. Blood streamed from her empty eye sockets, trailing down her face. She bent slightly at the waist, her voice trembling as she spoke. Obito, thanks cousin for sparing my life. But then, she suddenly felt Obito's hand touch her cheek. Realizing something in an instant, Setsuna let out a sorrowful smile and closed her now empty eyes. So, he never intended to let me go. He just wanted to remove my threat first, and then... Setsuna, you should consider yourself lucky, Obito said softly. Huh? Setsuna was stunned. If you had tried to use your dojutsu on me just now, I really would have killed you. This isn't what I expected. But if you're not going to kill me, then why are you touching my face? Confused, Setsuna opened her eyes, only to see Obito turning to leave. Wait! Why can I still see? A realization hit Setsuna like a bolt of lightning. Cousin, you gave me a new pair of eyes? Obito glanced back at her but didn't answer directly. Instead, he said indifferently. From now on, we're even. You and Mayu have done nothing to harm Konoha. Where you go from here is up to you too. With that, Obito turned and walked away without looking back. He still had somewhere else to be. Watching her cousin's fading silhouette, Setsuna felt a wave of emotion surge in her heart. Thank you, cousin. Plop, plop. The fish that had jumped out of the vegetable basket earlier was still struggling stubbornly against its fate, flopping wildly on the ground. Watching it, a thought struck Setsuna. She crouched down, carefully cupped the fish in both hands, and released it into the nearby stream. The heavy weight in her heart, one she had carried for so long, finally lifted. She let out a breath of relief. Gently wiping the blood from her face, she picked up the vegetable basket again and walked briskly back toward their little home. She couldn't wait to tell Mayuko-kun the good news. At Setsuna and Mayu's home. As soon as he saw his wife return, Mayu grinned and asked, Setsuna, what are we having for dinner tonight? Setsuna's body stiffened. Only then did she remember, she had just released their main ingredient back into the river. Feeling guilty, she could only say, let's have stir-fried bamboo shoots tonight. Mayu? Setsuna placed the basket in the kitchen, then turned around and threw her arms around Mayu, giggling. Mayuko-kun, if you had the chance, would you want to return to Konoha? Mayu looked at her, puzzled. Why are you suddenly asking that? Setsuna shook his arm playfully and said in a sweet voice. Oh, just curious. Come on, answer me. Scratching his head, Mayu answered honestly. Well, of course, going back would be nice, but as long as I'm with you, it doesn't matter where. Before he could finish, Setsuna silenced him with a kiss. Mayuko-kun, let's go back to Konoha. Mayu, Sigma, huh? Amigakure Village. Inside the village leader's office. A young man suddenly appeared, catching the leader off guard. Well, it's been a while. What brings you here today? Take a seat and wait for a bit, I'll go call Yahiko and Konan over. Just as Nagato was about to stand up, Obito grabbed his sleeve. His expression was slightly serious. Nagato, don't call them just yet. There's something I need to talk to you about, alone. Nagato gave him a strange look but nodded, pointing to the chair across from him. All right. Whatever it is, sit down and tell me. Obito took a seat and pulled a small vial from his cloak, setting it on Nagato's desk. Inside were 2 blood-red Sharingan. Nagato frowned. What is this? Obito spun the vial between his fingers and spoke in a low voice. These are the eyes of the person who took your Rinnegan. Nagato's expression darkened. You killed that girl? Obito shook his head, hesitating for a moment before answering. I took both of her eyes but chose to spare her life. If you think I was too lenient, I can go back and finish the job. Nagato let out a deep sigh. No, Obito. Let it end here. No matter how justified revenge may seem, it only breeds more hatred. It creates an endless cycle of vengeance. She is just as much a victim as I was. Let it go. Chapter 268, The Tragic Fate of Orochimaru. Obito nodded and said, "Alright, I'll go with what you say." He stood up and slowly walked toward Nagato. Under Nagato's confused gaze, Obito reached up and brushed aside his bangs. Looking at the empty socket where Nagato's left eye once was, Obito spoke softly. "I can help you restore this eye now. Do you want that woman's Mangekyo Sharingan, or do you wish to have your own eye back?" Nagato looked surprised. He raised his head to look at Obito and asked, "Is that really possible? It won't cause you any harm, will it?" Obito grinned. "Not at all. It's just a simple application of yin-yang release. At most, it'll drain some chakra, but I'll just have a big meal tonight, and it'll be fine." Yin-yang release? Could it be that Obito? Hearing those words, Nagato carefully examined Obito, and that's when he saw through his disguise. Obito's eyes were none other than a pair of Rinnegan with tomos spinning in their depths. Noticing Nagato's gaze, Obito spoke with a complicated expression. "It's a long story. Once I restore your left eye, I'll explain everything to you." Nagato pondered for a moment before nodding. "All right." After a brief silence, he slowly said, "I don't want to use someone else's eyes anymore. I want my own eyes back." Obito placed a hand over Nagato's empty eye socket and asked again, "Are you sure?" Without hesitation, Nagato replied, "I'm sure." "Do it." Obito nodded slightly and activated yin-yang release. Yin release governs the spiritual, shaping form from the formless. Yang release governs the physical, breathing life into that form. From nothingness, it creates all things and grants them life, such is the power of yin-yang release. Obito withdrew his hand and smiled. "All right. Try it out. Do things look clear, or are you feeling dizzy?" Nagato looked around for a while before sighing with genuine emotion. "Having both eyes is much more comfortable. I don't have to turn my head sideways to look at people anymore." Saying that, he grumbled with some frustration. "You wouldn't believe it. Half the people in the village used to say I was acting all high and mighty because I never looked at them directly. Haha, the god not looking people in the eye, absolutely perfect." Obito couldn't hold back and burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha. Sorry. I know I shouldn't be laughing, but I just can't help it." Nagato clicked his tongue in annoyance. "This little brat. He's actually enjoying my misfortune." He reached into a drawer and took out a mirror, gazing at his reflection. As his fingers traced over his now dark irises, a ripple stirred in his heart. "I have the same beautiful black eyes as Mother." After a long silence, Nagato put the mirror away and turned his heterochromatic gaze toward Obito. "All right. Now tell me about those eyes of yours." Obito's expression grew solemn, and he spoke in a low voice. "Even if you hadn't asked, I would have told you. Because this matter involves the person who once used you as a pawn, Uchiha Madara." "Nagato." "It all started with my first encounter with Uchiha Madara, a meeting that led to negotiations, and then a battle." As Obito narrated, his words painted a vivid and dramatic tale in Nagato's mind. "Through countless struggles of wits and power, I realized that even Madara was just another pawn, manipulated by someone else." Nagato. For some reason, he suddenly had the strange feeling that he was part of some endless cycle of manipulation. And that feeling only deepened when Obito went on to explain about Black Zetsu, about Kagaya Akatsuki, and about the Akatsuki clan that was even more terrifying than Kagaya herself. By the time Obito finished, Nagato's head was spinning, his expression gradually turning numb. "Just let the world end already. I'm exhausted." After a brief pause, giving Nagato time to process everything, Obito continued. "Later, the two of us joined forces and foiled Kagaya's plans, seizing her power for ourselves. But after all that, I just couldn't bring myself to kill Madara." At this, Obito sighed, his voice heavy with emotion. "Do you blame me for that?" A faint smile appeared on Nagato's lips. He patted Obito's shoulder and said, "How could I blame you? Even if our roles were reversed, I would have made the same choice, because it was the right decision. The past should stay in the past. This chain of hatred and pain. Let me be the one to break it. Obito's eyes wavered with emotion, and he couldn't help but sigh in admiration. No wonder Lord Jiraiya once wrote a book inspired by you, hoping it could change the world. Nagato chuckled and teased. If you're not talking about Ika Paradise, then yes, The Tale of the Gutsy Ninja is a book I quite like. The era of mutual understanding my master wrote about. I, too, yearn for it. Even though it seems impossible, if it's something my teacher believed in, then as his disciple, I can only have unwavering faith. With everything laid out between them, and Nagato having fully understood him, Obito finally felt as if a weight had been lifted from his heart. His usual mischievous grin returned. By the way, I have some good news for you. I might be about to become Hokage. Meanwhile, at Uchiha Madara's base, Orochimaru was fleeing in utter disgrace. But no matter where he ran, Madara would always appear right in front of him, blocking his path. With an ugly expression, Orochimaru spoke. Madara-sama, I have no intention of opposing you. Please, just let me go. Madara ignored his plea and instead spoke coldly. Think carefully about what I just told you, then reflect on it properly. Orochimaru let out a bitter laugh, his voice tinged with despair. I truly don't understand what you're talking about, Lord Madara. Madara placed one hand on Orochimaru's head, his grip gradually tightening. In that case, you will never escape this cycle. Because your fate is already in my hands. Remain trapped in this loop, until you finally see and accept your true self. And with that, Madara's fingers clenched down, crushing Orochimaru's skull. Ah! Orochimaru let out a scream. But in the very next instant, he found himself standing there, completely unharmed. And Madara was right in front of him once again, speaking in the same cold tone. Think carefully about what I just told you, then reflect on it properly. Orochimaru's face twisted in horror. What? What is this? In the real world, Madara had one hand placed on Orochimaru's head, a mocking smirk on his lips. Head pats and a firm rejection. No more fights. With just a simple touch, he had activated an Uchiha clan forbidden technique. Izanami. A terrifying dojutsu that forcibly trapped its target in an endless loop, until they acknowledged their true fate. If they failed to do so, they would remain imprisoned forever. As a price for casting this technique, Madara's right eye darkened and lost all light. But he didn't care. Casually plucking out the now blind eye, he tossed it aside. Then placed a hand over his empty socket and activated Yin-Yang release. Moments later, a brand new right eye appeared. Though it had yet to open, it was completely his own. And within it, lay infinite possibilities. Chapter 269, Conan's Bag of Rice. Madara reminisced about an old, long-buried memory, muttering to himself. The principle behind awakening the Sharingan lies in extreme emotional fluctuations, which stimulate the brain to produce a special kind of chakra. This chakra then acts on the optic nerves, altering the state of the eyes. If I remember correctly, those fluctuations originate in the frontal lobe, transmitting to the cortical areas on either side of the calcarine fissure in the occipital lobe. Back in the day, the Uchiha clan had conducted extensive research on the mechanism of my awakening in preparation for war. The clan's leaders had envisioned a future where every Uchiha member could awaken their Sharingan. If that dream became reality, the Uchiha would be invincible, unstoppable by any force. However, that grand vision remained just that, a vision. Because the human brain was simply too fragile. Pushing it too far could easily lead to self-destruction. After sacrificing over 100 test subjects, the experiment was forcibly shut down and classified as top secret. But now, Madara was ready to test it on himself, using a shortcut to awaken his eyes. My chakra control is precise down to the finest detail, and my body has long surpassed human limits. On top of that, I have Yin-Yang released to safeguard myself. There shouldn't be any issues. Madara, fearless as always, had no intention of backing down. TCH, what a joke. I'm Madara. Of course, I'm not scared. He carefully manipulated his chakra, threading it into the network of blood vessels in his brain. Then, without hesitation, he stabbed straight into his frontal lobe. In the next moment, a surge of peculiar chakra spilled from his frontal lobe. It traveled along his optic nerves, rushing toward his right eye. It's working. A smirk tugged at Madara's lips. His dark eyes were tainted with a crimson hue, and with the familiar activation sound, a single tomo emerged. Again! He increased the thickness of the chakra strands in his brain and struck his frontal lobe once more. Ding! With another activation sound, the second tomo appeared. Then came the third. Within just a few breaths, Madara had transformed his previously unremarkable right eye into a fully developed three-tomo Sharingan. He had effortlessly accomplished what most Uchiha spent their entire lives chasing after. And yet, Madara didn't feel satisfied. Instead, his brows furrowed deeply. This is my limit. My chakra pathways are already overloaded just from reaching 3 tomo. But this level of chakra stimulation isn't nearly enough to awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan. Soon, however, his expression relaxed. If this method won't work, then I'll just try something else. Let me think. Got it! Why not use the power of the Ten Tails to weave a completely realistic illusion? He could alter his consciousness, modify his perception, and temporarily erase his memories leading up to that event. Then, by reliving that moment as his past self, he would once again face his most desperate, agonizing experience. As long as I preset the technique and suppress the Ten Tails' power before activation, this should work. Madara muttered under his breath, his eyes gleaming with eager anticipation. Everyone else is cheating. Why should I play fair? I'm Madara. Time to cheat my way to the top. Inside Conan's house, Yahiko gawked at Nagato in shock. What? Obito is about to become Hokage? Nagato, exasperated, shoved Yahiko's face away. If you have something to say it to him, not me. Why are you looking at me like that? Yahiko scratched his head and let out a hearty laugh. Can you blame me? Those eyes of yours always grab my attention. Yahiko! Nagato raised a hand and yanked him toward himself with Bancho Tenin, messing up Yahiko's hair into a spiky disaster. Nagato! Not one to be outdone, Yahiko roared back, opening his mouth and unleashing a water release, wild water wave, splashing Nagato's face completely. Yahiko! Nagato! Conan rolled her eyes and unceremoniously shoved the two aside. Turning to Obito, she sighed. Obito, you spend every day with these two fools. Can you even begin to imagine my suffering? Obito nodded solemnly. I think I understand. The weight of your bag. I feel it now. Yahiko and Nagato exchanged glances, both scoffing and turning away. TCH. Anyway, Obito. Conan suddenly remembered something and looked at Obito curiously. Didn't you say you had 2 pieces of good news? What's the other one? Yahiko also turned his attention to Obito, while Nagato merely smiled knowingly. Seeing Conan's eager and nosy expression, Obito decided to just say it outright. I'm getting married soon. Yahiko! Conan! Damn it! Obito got ahead of us. That was the shared thought in both their minds. As they stared at him with envy, jealousy, and resentment, Obito smirked triumphantly. You guys aren't getting any younger. Shouldn't you start thinking about settling down? If this were my village, you'd both be considered old single people by now. Yahiko stole a quick glance at Conan before straightening up and speaking righteously. The world of shinobi is still unstable. How could I have time for romance? Conan rolled her eyes so hard she nearly knocked herself over. Fine. Stay single, then. Nagato and I will get married first. Right, Nagato? Nagato smiled slightly and nodded. Indeed, indeed. I don't plan to be as stubborn as Yahiko. Yahiko immediately lunged at Nagato, locking an arm around his neck and pulling him into a chokehold. Nagato, you traitor! Meanwhile, Konan rubbed her hands together, eyes gleaming as she turned back to Obito. Obito, since you're here, how about a few rounds tonight? Obito hesitated, looking somewhat conflicted. The leader of the village, the secretary, and the future Hokage of Konoha, all gathering at night to gamble? That doesn't seem appropriate, does it? For a brief moment, everyone fell silent, lost in nostalgia. Yeah, we've all grown up. We can't just goof around like before. But then, a mischievous grin spread across Obito's face. Unless you let me shuffle the deck tonight. Otherwise, I'm going back to Konoha to play poker with Rin. And just like that, the four of them had a fantastic night together. The next day, yawning, Obito trudged back to Konoha. After an all-night battle, even Hashirama cells had their limits. If Itachi isn't out on a mission, he should be in the ANBU headquarters around this time. With that thought in mind, he headed toward ANBU. Just as he arrived at the entrance, a teenage boy stepped out. He had light gray hair, round glasses, and an air of maturity beyond his years. Upon seeing Obito, the boy immediately bowed respectfully. Obito-senpai, it's an honor to meet you. Ah, it's little Jackie-chan. As Obito pondered for a moment, the boy remained bent at the waist, not straightening up. Seeing this, Obito gestured for him to rise, curiosity flashing in his eyes. You're Yakushi Kabuto, right? Itachi mentioned you wanted to meet me? Kabuto adjusted his glasses and nodded. Yes, Obito-senpai. Obito clicked his tongue, then pointed to a nearby grove. No time like the present. Let's have a chat over there. To be honest, I'm really curious, why do you hold me in such high regard? Chapter 270, Recruiting Yakushi Kabuto. Konoha. On the way to a secluded grove, leading a young boy along, Obito caught the attention of many passing shinobi. Obito-sama. Obito-sama, I want to have your children. Sarutobi Hiruzen? Obito-sama, you're looking full of energy today. Obito, ever easygoing, responded with a smile, greeting each one in turn. Good morning, miss. Sorry, I'm not into overly muscular guys. You too. You're looking mighty spirited. After reaching the grove, Obito lazily collapsed onto a wooden chair, crossing one leg over the other and rocking slightly. Ah, this is the life. He glanced at Kabuto, who was standing stiffly, looking somewhat uneasy. Patting the seat beside him, Obito grinned. Come on, sit down and talk. You standing there is making me nervous. Kabuto adjusted his glasses, smiling shyly. All right, senpai. If you insist, I won't refuse. Smoothing out his clothes, he carefully sat down next to Obito, his demeanor reserved and cautious. Seeing this, Obito found himself amused. This kid is surprisingly obedient. Nothing like the arrogant, untouchable genius from my past life. Kabuto seemed to be gathering his thoughts, hesitating for a long while before finally speaking. Obito-senpai, the reason I respect you so much is because I owe you a great debt. Obito raised an eyebrow in surprise. As far as he remembered, he had never interacted with Kabuto before. Curious, he waited for the explanation. You may find this strange, but please allow me to explain. Kabuto adjusted his glasses, a nostalgic look crossing his face. I was a war orphan, taken in by Director Nono Yakushi, who found me and showed me kindness. She gave me her surname, her glasses, and more importantly, a home. To me, she was like a mother, and she treated me as her son. The following is Kabuto's memory. Living with mother at the orphanage, every day was filled with warmth and joy. She was always busy, but no matter what, she made time to visit, teaching me medical ninjutsu. Ha ha. I always knew I was her favorite. Smug. She often told me I had talent, that I would one day become a great hero who could bring peace to the world. And every time she praised me, I would bask in that happiness for a long, long time. If only those peaceful days could have lasted forever. But today, that despicable man, Shimura Danzo, came again. He always threatened to cut off the orphanage's funding, even going so far as to suggest disbanding it entirely, forcing Mother to undertake deadly missions under duress. The war had only just ended, yet he wanted her to infiltrate Iwagakure as a spy. Everyone knew that, right now, the Iwa Nin would tear any Konoha shinobi apart if given the chance. End of memory. Danzo discovered I had overheard him and forced me into his ranks. At the time, I didn't understand, he only saw me as an extra measure to control Mother. Sunlight reflected off Kabuto's glasses, a cold gleam in his eyes. From then on, Mother and I could only communicate through letters, our only way to keep each other's image alive. But later, we discovered that Danzo had been altering my records all along, making sure she would never recognize me again. Turning to Obito, Kabuto's gaze darkened. I believe you can already guess why Danzo did this. Obito let out a long sigh. Epsilon sad face Omicron asterisk, sigh. Danzo. You never do anything remotely human, do you? So, because I killed Danzo, you believe I did you a great favor? Kabuto nodded firmly. Maybe to you, taking his life was a simple matter, but that single act saved both me and Mother. Because of you, we were able to reunite and escape the tragic fate Danzo had planned for us. Having finally unraveled this mystery, Obito patted Kabuto's shoulder with a smile. Honestly, when I killed Danzo, I had no idea about any of this. So really, you don't need to feel so indebted to me. Kabuto shook his head, his expression solemn. Obito-senpai, both Mother and I have long regarded you as our savior. If you ever need anything, just say the word. We will serve you without hesitation. Obito played with his fingers thoughtfully. Looking at the sincere and devoted Kabuto, he fell into contemplation. Kabuto, like Orochimaru, is an invaluable talent. In my past life, he was practically on the level of a top scientist. Since I have this chance, why not recruit both him and that intelligent blonde woman? Making up his mind, Obito spoke slowly. You don't need to serve me, but I do have a proposition for you. Kabuto blinked in confusion. A proposition? I see immense potential in you, Yakushi Kabuto. With proper guidance, you could achieve great things. Since fate has brought us together, let me ask you. Will you become my student? The first disciple of Uchiha Obito? The chance to train under a powerhouse like Obito was something countless shinobi dreamed of. Without hesitation, Kabuto stood up and bowed deeply. Sensei, please accept this disciple's respects. Obito watched him bow with satisfaction. This kid gets it. Not bad, not bad. I'll be sure to cultivate his potential properly. Helping Kabuto up, he laughed heartily. The ANBU is a waste of your talents. From now on, you'll follow me. Kabuto immediately nodded. I have no objections. I leave everything to Sensei's discretion. Obito lightly tapped Kabuto's wrist, leaving behind a seal infused with refined senjutsu chakra. Kabuto studied the mark curiously. Sensei, this is a test. If you can comprehend the power within this seal before it fades, I will fully acknowledge you as my disciple. Kabuto's eyes sparkled with determination. I understand. I will pass this trial and prove myself. Obito smiled. Good. I have high expectations for you. Now go back and focus on your training. I'll take care of your departure from the ANBU. Kabuto bowed respectfully. Understood, Sensei. I shall take my leave. Watching him go, Obito nodded in approval. This kid is solid. Definitely worth keeping around. Stretching lazily, Obito made his way back to the ANBU headquarters, where he soon captured a wild Itachi and set off for Kiridakure to see his dear little brother. Chapter 271, Power Up, Return to Konoha. Outside Kiridakure. On a small island surrounded by the sea on all sides. The three Uchiha ninjas sat on the ground, enjoying a hot pot while chatting. The atmosphere was relaxed and carefree. The sea breeze brushed against their faces, and the sunlight shone warmly upon them, bringing faint smiles to their lips. But as Obito finished recounting his recent encounters with all sorts of bizarre, supernatural events, the smiles on Shisui and Itachi's faces faded. Itachi's expression darkened, his lips parting slightly as he murmured, "I always thought Uchiha Madara was the final enemy. I never expected there to be even more forces behind him." Shisui let out a soft sigh, looking a bit downcast as he said, "With my current strength, I can't be of much help to you, Obito." He patted Itachi's shoulder and spoke with a serious expression. "Itachi, you're the only one in the clan who has kept up with Obito's pace. From now on, protecting his back is your responsibility." Itachi's gaze flickered slightly. He didn't say anything, only nodding silently. Seeing his younger cousin's disheartened expression, Obito burst into laughter and said, "Shisui, there's no need to be so discouraged. Your dear cousin is here to give you a power-up." Shisui blinked in confusion. "A power-up? What do you mean?" Obito didn't explain. Instead, he took out a small bottle from his pocket and tossed it to Shisui. "Catch!" Shisui caught the bottle and peered inside through the transparent glass. What he saw inside shocked him, a pair of Sharingan eyes. He looked at Obito in disbelief. "This is..." Obito nodded and gestured toward the bottle. "These are Uchiha Setsuna's Mangekyo Sharingan. If you absorb their power, you'll awaken the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan." Shisui stared at the eyes within the bottle, his expression complicated. "Obito, shouldn't we let Itachi take them instead?" Before he could finish, Itachi shook his head and said, "Shisui, these eyes won't do much for me. They won't make any significant difference." Though his words sounded harsh, they were simply the truth. After all, centuries ago, the so-called eternal Mangekyo Sharingan didn't even exist. Indra used his Mangekyo Sharingan for a lifetime, and its durability never wore down. It was only later, as the Uchiha bloodline weakened and their chakra reserves declined, that even the Mangekyo Sharingan became a rarity. That was when the concept of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan emerged, achieved by absorbing the ocular power of a blood relative to purify and strengthen one's own Mangekyo. But for Itachi, who had already gained the Yin power of the Sage of Six Paths, his next level of ocular power required at least a dozen pairs of Mangekyo to even make a difference. Shisui looked at Obito with a pleading expression. Obito shrugged and met his cousin's gaze. "Itachi is telling the truth, Shisui. Stop hesitating. You were once the genius of the Uchiha clan. Are you really willing to let us leave you behind?" Shisui lowered his gaze, staring at the small bottle in his hand without speaking. "Of course I don't want to be left behind, but..." Seeing Shisui's hesitation, Obito sighed helplessly. "No more doubts, Shisui. Setsuna's ocular abilities are similar to yours. Right now, you need to get stronger, and you're the best candidate to inherit these eyes." Shisui clenched his teeth and made up his mind. "I understand, Obito." To awaken the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, the donor and recipient needed to be blood-related. And the closer the relation, the higher the success rate. But for Shisui, who had access to modification abilities, this wasn't an issue at all. Seeing that his cousin had accepted the power-up, Obito placed a hand on Shisui's shoulder and grinned. "Now for the second upgrade." Saying that, he infused Shisui's body with roughly 5 units of Ten-Tail's chakra. It wasn't that he was unwilling to give more, but rather that Shisui's body couldn't handle any more than that. Feeling the pure chakra surging inside him, Shisui asked in surprise, "Obito, this is..." Obito smiled. "This is the power of the Ten-Tails, or you could call it the power of the Sage of Six Paths someday. it might help you awaken the Rinnegan. Note, the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan is not a requirement for awakening the Rinnegan. The real key is the power of the 6 paths. Without it, even the Eternal Mangekyo can't evolve into the Rinnegan. After granting Shursui these power-ups, Obito added one last reminder. Oh, and Shursui, make sure to talk to Materumi. From now on, Kirigakure and Konoha should deepen their cooperation. Shursui nodded and smiled. Actually, after hearing about how you single-handedly fended off 40,000 enemies, Mei had already been considering this. The thought of his cousin soon becoming Hokage made Shursui's blood boil with excitement. Obito, I'd always believed you could change the Uchiha clan, change Konoha. And now, you've done it. The Uchiha have finally produced a Hokage. Obito laughed heartily at those words, and even Itachi couldn't help but smile. Their laughter echoed across the island, startling flocks of birds into the sky. Ha 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 ha. After a while, Obito glanced at the sky and said, "All right, Itachi and I are heading back. When the ceremony happens, I'll come to Kirigakure to pick you up." Shursui gave them both a big hug before reluctantly bidding them farewell. "See you, everyone." Konoha. Obito led Itachi to Rin's doorstep and then abandoned him there without a second thought. Open the door, step inside, shut the door. He left Itachi standing outside in disbelief. "Rin-chan!" Obito called out playfully. Seeing the girl he had dreamed about for so long, his heart instantly melted. "Obito-kun." Rin glanced past Obito toward the door, her expression puzzled. "I could have sworn I just saw Itachi outside. Aren't you going to invite him in for a bit?" Obito wrapped an arm around her shoulder, leading her inside as he spoke. "You must be imagining things, Rin-chan. If Itachi were outside, do you think I wouldn't let him in? You know how much we Uchiha dote on our clan members." Outside, still standing there. Rin tilted her head thoughtfully before nodding. "That makes sense. Obito-kun, hold me." Obito scooped her up in a princess carry, cradling her soft and fragrant form in his arms. Rin nuzzled into his chest, giggling. "Just thinking about how we'll be together every day from now on makes me so happy." Looking at Rin, whose smile was sweet and scent was intoxicating, Obito smiled from the bottom of his heart. "Yeah, and soon, we'll be a family of 3. We'll have a cute little baby to live with us." As the door slowly closed, they whispered sweet words to each other. Chapter 272, We Do Not Recognize the Uchiha. Konoha. Inside Rin's home. The warm sunlight streamed through the window, casting a golden glow over the sleeping girl's delicate figure. At this moment, Rin looked as if she were draped in a robe woven from sunlight. Outside, gentle waves rippled under the morning light, creating a picturesque scene. "Rin-chan," Obito murmured softly. Lying beside her, he gazed at his sleeping lover, a blissful smile playing at his lips. Of course, it wasn't just the corners of his mouth that were raised, his eyebrows had also lifted in delight. Silently, Obito slipped out of bed and left the room, heading toward the kitchen. "Well then, before Rin-chan wakes up, I'll prepare breakfast for her." Tying on an apron, he heated up the pan, only for a sudden realization to strike him. "Damn! I don't actually know how to cook. No choice, I'll have to handle this another way." With a flicker of Kamui, Obito vanished, only to reappear inside a certain silver-haired, masked man's house. Before the stunned occupant could react, Obito snatched up the freshly prepared breakfast from the table. "I'll be taking this." The silver-haired man was dumbfounded. "Oi! That was for Shinzu," Kakashi protested. "Stealing my bed was one thing, but now my breakfast too?" Obito stuck out his tongue playfully. "Too bad, so sad. Later!" And with that, he disappeared once more. Kakashi stood frozen for a moment before rubbing his temple with a deep sigh. That guy is getting more and more ridiculous. Shaking his head, he resigned himself to making another serving. "Well, at least I didn't have to cook alongside Shinzu this morning." When Rin finally woke up and walked into the dining room, she was greeted by the sight of an elaborate breakfast spread across the table. Her eyes widened in surprise as she looked over at Obito. Obito-kun. Did you make all of this for me? Obito puffed up with pride, nodding enthusiastically. Of course! Hurry up and eat while it's still warm. With you by my side, every single day, I'll make sure to cook for you, morning, noon, and night. Rin's cheeks flushed red at his words, and with a shy punch to his arm, she stammered. You're so embarrassing, Obito-kun. After breakfast, Rin picked up the dishes, intending to wash them, but Obito quickly took them from her hands. I've got this, Rin-chan, he said. You just go rest. Rin rolled her eyes, both touched and amused. I'm only a month or two along, Obito-kun, you don't have to be this dramatic. Obito gently pushed her toward the bedroom. Come on, go get dressed for work, Rin-chan. Once she was inside, Obito used Kamui again, this time to teleport the dirty dishes straight back to Kakashi's house. Kakashi stared at the plates in his hands, utterly speechless. Are you even human, man? He muttered. Stealing Shinza's breakfast was bad enough, but now I have to wash your dishes too? You think I'm your husband or something? Just then, a sleepy Shinza stumbled out of the bedroom, yawning. Husband? What husband? She mumbled, rubbing her eyes. Kakashi, who exactly were you calling your husband? Kakashi and Obito locked eyes for a brief moment. A strange, indescribable tension hung in the air. Obito coughed awkwardly. Ahem. Anyway, I still need to take Rin to work, so I'm out. With that, his face flushed slightly, and he disappeared once more. At Madara's base. Madara slowly opened his eyes, his expression impassive as his presence filled the room with an overwhelming aura. Heh. That was even easier than expected. In the depths of his right eye, an ominous black pattern rotated within the endless crimson. The Mangekyo Sharingan. Now, all that's left is to nurture it with the power of the six paths. Madara's voice was calm, certain. He had no doubt he would awaken the Rinnegan before long. After all, the power of the six paths that coursed through him now was dozens, no, hundreds, of times stronger than before. The Rinnegan was inevitable. Yet, there was one thing that gnawed at him. With all this power at his disposal, could he awaken the six-tomo Rinnegan? To be surpassed in ocular prowess by two mere children? Unacceptable. There was no way he could let that happen. I, Madara, will have the six-tomo Rinnegan as well. With a heavy humph, he rose to his feet, the corners of his mouth curling into a smirk as an idea formed in his mind. Well then. It's time to visit an old friend. Adjusting his robe, he stepped out of the chamber and headed for the grand hall of his base. I wonder what expression you'll make when you see me again. Don't you agree, Hashirama? Back in Konoha. Having just left Konoha Hospital, Obito walked down the bustling streets, hands in his pockets, leisurely strolling without a care in the world. He glanced at the city around him, watching people go about their lives. He even spotted a few disheveled young women on the roadside. Man. It feels weird having so much free time. Just then, a masked ANBU member landed in front of him, dropping down from the rooftops. The ninja bowed slightly before speaking. Obito-sama, Lord Fourth has a message for you. Oh? If it isn't Yamato. Obito mused. You sure sound like a traitor when you talk like that, kid. Noticing Obito's smirk, Yamato recalled the ANBU rumors about Obito's erratic temper and his tendency to kill without warning. Sweat dripped down his temple as he forced himself to remain calm. Lord Fourth requests your presence in the Hokage's office immediately, Yamato said. He said he needs your assistance with an urgent matter. Obito raised an eyebrow. An urgent matter? What could Minato-sensei need me to handle? Yamato thought back to Minato's words. Lord Fourth didn't specify. He just said to handle things as you see fit. Obito gave a small nod, patting Yamato's shoulder. All right, I'll head over. Good work. Yamato quickly shook his head. No trouble at all. It's all for the village. Inside the Hokage's office, Minato sat on the couch, looking somewhat exasperated as he gazed at the two elders seated across from him. Koharu Uchiha and Hamura Mitokado, two long-standing figures in Konoha's political landscape. Even as Hokage, Minato had to treat them with a certain level of respect. Koharu spoke first, her tone firm. Minato, we ask that you reconsider this matter carefully. Minato sipped his tea with a wry smile. Elders, this appointment was suggested by the third. Perhaps we should. Hamura adjusted his glasses, cutting him off with a smirk. We just spoke with Hiruzen. He said you are Hokage now, so the decision is yours. Ah, great. Minato sighed internally. Thanks a lot, third. Just then, the office doors burst open with a loud bang. The elders frowned in disapproval, while Minato calmly took another sip of tea. Uchiha Obito strolled in with a grin. Well, I couldn't help but overhear. It seems the esteemed elders have some concerns about me. Chapter 273, Konoha Year 56. Inside the Hokage's office. Upon hearing Koharu Uchiha's words, Obito immediately frowned, his displeasure evident. How does arrogance disqualify someone from being Hokage? Are you looking down on Lord Tobirama? That's some serious disrespect. Koharu's aged face turned an unsettling shade of green. You! She wanted to refute him, but the moment she thought about her teacher's personality, she realized she had no solid counterargument. Seeing her at a loss for words, Obito smirked and continued mocking her. Talking behind people's backs, acting all high and mighty, and yet, you two think you're the epitome of politeness? Enough! It was Hamura Mitokado who reacted first, slamming the table as he barked out his reprimand. Lord Tobirama was a wise and humble man, an irreplaceable gentleman. You dare distort the truth and insult his legacy? Such insolence is beyond reason. Hearing this, Obito's expression turned odd as he thought to himself. Are we talking about the same Senju Tobirama? Do they think I've never watched Naruto? At that moment, Koharu regained her composure and, alongside Hamura, launched into a furious tirade against Obito. #UN. The relentless bickering gave Obito a headache. He turned to Minato, silently pleading for help. Minato merely gave him a helpless look before sipping his tea and continuing to enjoy the show. Great, I can't count on Minato-sensei. Looks like I'll have to handle this myself. Obito raised a hand, motioning for them to calm down. Honored elders, please, let's not get too agitated. Why don't you listen to what I have to say first? Koharu and Hamura, finally running out of breath, huffed and puffed but paused, waiting to hear what he had to say. Seeing them finally settle down, Obito grinned and spoke in a casual tone. The last person who called me disrespectful was the Kazekage. I took one of his fingers and slaughtered 10,000 Suna shinobi. Koharu and Hamura's faces stiffened. Just as they were about to retort, Obito cut them off. The one before that was the white snake sage of Ryuchi Cave. I skinned her alive, pulled out her tendons, and made a fine snake stew. With those words, Obito slowly rose to his feet, an oppressive aura flooding the room. The sheer weight of his presence made the air feel heavy. Arrogantly crossing his arms, he glanced down at the two elders with an unmistakable air of dominance. So, before you speak next time, I suggest you carefully consider the tone you use with me. Koharu and Hamura's expressions darkened. His blatant disregard for authority, his unshakable arrogance, it was all too familiar. He was just like Uchiha Madara. Hamura's glasses slid askew from his sheer anger as he demanded, Are you threatening us, Uchiha Obito? Koharu turned to Minato, frowning. Minato, is this the kind of disciple you've raised? Speaking so insolently to his elders? Obito tapped his fingers lightly on the desk and sighed. You two have been living in your own little world for too long. It seems you've lost sight of reality. He strolled forward, closing the distance between them. Under their wary gazes, he leaned in slightly, a smirk tugging at his lips. Whether or not I become Hokage, whether or not I remain in Konoha. If I want someone dead or if I set my mind on something, no one in this world can stop me. I killed Danzo Shimura. Do you two really think you're untouchable? Koharu and Hamura instinctively glanced at Minato. Seeing that he had remained silent throughout the entire exchange, their hearts sank. He's serious. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the two elders scrambled to leave, not even bothering with a farewell. Minato watched them retreat from the window before turning back to Obito with a relaxed smile. Well, Obito, thanks for stepping in and helping your teacher out just now. Obito rolled his eyes in exasperation. Minato-sensei, that was dirty of you. You're the one who suggested I become Hokage, but when it comes to making enemies, you push the job onto me? Minato chuckled, patting Obito on the shoulder. They are my elders, after all. I can't outright go against them, so I had to take a more indirect approach. Though your words were a bit harsh, the result was exactly what I hoped for. Obito sat back down on the desk, grinning. You could have just rejected them outright. I'm guessing you wanted to use me to knock them down a peg? Minato simply smiled in response, neither confirming nor denying it. Obito didn't mind. He had no issue playing along. Two washed-up old, well, let's just say they weren't even worth worrying about. He raised an eyebrow at Minato, smirking mischievously. So, Minato-sensei, when do you plan on handing over the title? I'm waiting for my legendary secret technique reward, after all. Minato laughed. Eager to take over already? The third Hokage wants to hold the succession ceremony alongside the New Year's celebrations. Obito blinked. Well, that saves me some money. Man, the third Hokage really takes frugality to another level. Time flows like falling petals, like a river slipping through one's fingers. Before anyone realized it, Konoha year 56 had arrived. Over the past few months, the shinobi world had undergone a drastic transformation. First, Uchiha Obito of Konoha single-handedly repelled an army. Then, the four great powers, Konoha, Yoru, Kiri, and Akatsuki, formed a strategic alliance. People in Konoha called this coalition the Community of Destiny. They preached about how humanity shared a single planet, how all nations and villages should seek mutual benefit and common values through cooperation. Thanks to the leadership of these four, many others followed suit, integrating into this new alliance. Konoha's dominance in the shinobi world became even more unshakable. Meanwhile, the simultaneous change in leadership across three major villages sent shockwaves through the world. Tsunagekyu's fourth Kazekage, Raza, stepped down, and his trusted advisor, Baki, took over as the fifth Kazekage. Kumogakure's fourth Raikage, also stepped down, appointing his loyal bodyguard, Darui, as the fifth Raikage. But the most shocking move came from Iwagakure. After retiring, third Tsuchikage Inoki named an unexpected successor. Deidara. An infamous rogue ninja with a reputation for destruction. By all logic, Kitsuchi was the more suitable candidate. However, those within Iwagakure understood Inoki's reasoning. Deidara was a prodigy. Within just a few months, he had mastered Inoki's dust release. Even Kitsuchi himself acknowledged Deidara's superiority. Aside from being a bit dim and having a big mouth, I guess he's alright? As Tsuchikage, Deidara, backed by Inoki, pushed Iwagakure into the Community of Destiny. This left Kumogakure and Tsunagakure feeling completely isolated. Now, the entire shinobi world was focused on one event, Konoha's transition of power. The hero of the Third Shinobi War, the Yellow Flash, was stepping down. To make way for the hero of the Fourth Shinobi War. The 10,000 Slayer, Uchiha Obito. Chapter 274, Hashirama and Madara. Some time ago. Inside Uchiha Madara's base. A strikingly handsome figure slowly regained consciousness, his awareness returning. Senju Tobarama rolled his stiff neck and took in his surroundings. That damned snake guy again, and that naturally evil Uchiha Madara? His pupils shrank in an instant. Without a moment's hesitation, relying purely on instinct, he formed hand seals and unleashed a jutsu. Water release, water-severing wave. A high-pressure water blade, sharp enough to cut through the divine tree itself, shot toward Madara with a piercing sound. However, what happened next left Tobirama utterly stunned. Madara simply waved his hand, and the fierce water blade shattered instantly, dispersing into harmless droplets. This guy, he's even more terrifying than before. Tobirama glanced at his still unconscious elder brother. He chose not to attack again. Instead, his sharp gaze remained locked onto Madara, his mind racing with unknown thoughts. Senju Tobirama. Madara examined him with interest, a hint of curiosity in his voice. I've changed so much, how did you recognize me instantly? Tobirama sneered, his tone as icy as ever. Uchiha Madara, a born villain. Even if you were reduced to ashes, I'd still recognize you. Now let me ask you, why haven't you tampered with my personality? Madara crossed his arms and smirked. Because right now, you pose no threat to me. As he finished speaking, an overwhelming surge of chakra erupted from his body, roaring like a tidal wave. Tobirama's expression darkened instantly. This guy got uglier, and ridiculously stronger. Way too strong. But even so, Tobirama remained unfazed. Or rather, he had never known what it meant to panic. His face remained cold as he replied, flaunting your power in front of a dead man. Does that bring you pleasure? Enough with the nonsense, Madara. What do you really want from me? Madara arched an eyebrow, his lips curling into a mocking smirk. As expected of you, Tobirama. Still as sharp-tongued as ever. But I have no real interest in you. I just don't want you ruining my reunion with Hashirama. If you know what's good for you, just sit back and listen. What I'm about to say is quite fascinating. Tobirama frowned slightly but resisted the urge to attack. This guy is way too confident, it's irritating. But having my brother back is only beneficial to me. I'll hold off for now and see what Madara is up to. Fine, for now, I'll go along with it, Madara. Madara didn't seem to care about Tobirama's reaction. In truth, he had a pretty good idea of what Tobirama was thinking. Your greatest enemy will always understand you best. Ignoring Tobirama, Madara turned his gaze to Hashirama, his eyes burning with anticipation as he silently called out. Wake up, Hashirama. Hashirama slowly opened his eyes, just as Tobirama had earlier, and scanned his surroundings. Tobirama, were we resurrected again? Then, the moment he saw Madara, confusion flickered across his face before turning into joy and relief. You're... Madara. You're alive. That's great. Though this might not be the best time, seeing Madara again truly makes me happy. Like an excited fool, Hashirama rushed over to Madara's side, poking and prodding him while grinning like an idiot. Madara, why do you look like this now? You look so ugly. Oh! And how did you survive back then? Ignoring Hashirama's enthusiasm, Madara took a few steps back, his tone somber as he muttered. Hashirama, you actually stabbed me in the back. Hashirama froze. His thoughts drifted back to that rainy night long ago. In the gentle drizzle, he had stood behind Madara, plunging a long blade deep into his body. Madara had looked at him with disbelief. Hashirama, you actually... Hashirama's expression was complicated, but his voice was firm. I had to protect our... No, I had to protect my village. My friends, my brothers, even my children, if they dared to threaten the village, I would never forgive them. As he watched Madara collapse before him, childhood memories surged through his mind. He recalled how he used to sneak up on Madara whenever he was peeing, watching as his friend struggled to finish out of embarrassment. That had been Madara's one and only weakness. Once, Madara had even threatened to throw him into the river after peeing in it. In the end, the two of them had playfully tumbled into the water together. But now, standing behind Madara once again, it had been to kill him. End of flashback. Hashirama fell to his knees, bowing his head. Madara. I was wrong back then. I hope you can forgive me. Humph. That fool thought he killed me, yet he never realized it was all part of my plan. Madara gave Hashirama a sidelong glance and extended his hand. You idiot. You absolute moron. Hashirama blinked in surprise. Madara. Madara turned his head away, avoiding Hashirama's gaze. I made mistakes, too. So, I'll forgive you this once. Now get up. I have something important to discuss with you. A bright smile spread across Hashirama's face as he nodded enthusiastically. All right. Grasping Madara's hand, Hashirama pulled himself up and sighed sincerely. Madara, even though you've gotten uglier, you seem much more cheerful now. Madara instantly yanked his hand away, scowling. Get lost. I swear, I can never tell if you're just naive or naturally irritating. Hashirama chuckled sheepishly before turning to his younger brother, his expression puzzled. Tobirama, why haven't you said a word this whole time? That's not like you. Scratching his head, he looked at Madara with a strange expression. Madara. You didn't mute Tobirama, did you? Tobirama replied calmly, No, brother. I'm fine. Madara, just get to the point. What is it you need to talk to my brother about? Madara shot him a cold glance, visibly annoyed. Humph. I don't need you to tell me what to do, Senju Tobirama. Hashirama, what I'm about to tell you concerns the fate of the entire shinobi world. Listen carefully. Hashirama's eyes widened in shock. The fate of the shinobi world? Even Tobirama, who had been feigning disinterest, subtly perked up his ears. Madara nodded slightly, his tone grave. That's right. It all started with that stone tablet. The divine tree, the Akatsuki clan, Kagaya, Black Zetsu. After listening to Madara's explanation, Hashirama couldn't help but ask. So, you were manipulated by that Black Zetsu, and that's why we ended up as enemies? Yeah. Madara responded indifferently, clearly unwilling to dwell on his past mistakes. In any case, those beings from beyond this world are an ongoing threat to the shinobi world. For the sake of this world, for Konoha, for the Senju and the Uchiha, you and I must join forces again. Without hesitation, Hashirama nodded excitedly. Fighting alongside you again, Madara? Protecting peace together? I'd love nothing more. Then he turned to his brother, looking uncertain. Tobirama, you. He's still arrogant and infuriating, but Madara really has changed. Tobirama crossed his arms and snorted. Fine. Count me in. Chapter 275, The Fifth Hokage Present Day. Konohagakure. The area in front of the Hokage building was packed with people, civilians, shinobi, and even some visitors from other lands. The streets nearby were completely blocked off by the massive crowd, shoulder to shoulder, all eager to witness the event. Yet, despite the density of the crowd, more people were still desperately trying to squeeze their way in. It's so rare to see three Hokage in the same frame. Ugh, Minato-sama is so handsome. Why does he have to step down? Well, Obito-sama is handsome too, he just looks kinda goofy when he smiles. A New Year's festival and a Hokage inauguration on the same day, this is truly a double celebration for Konoha. Yeah, but it kind of feels like the higher-ups just wanted to save time. Atop the circular platform on the Hokage building, Hiruzen, Minato, and Obito stood side by side, all three clad in white Hokage robes with flame patterns. They stood at the edge of the platform, smiling and waving in all directions, responding to the villagers' enthusiastic cheers. When the cheers finally began to die down, Hiruzen took a step forward. Clearing his throat, he spoke in a loud and steady voice. People of Konoha, we have emerged victorious from a great war. Today, Konoha stands reborn, stronger, more prosperous than ever. As we bid farewell to the old year, our hearts swell with pride. And as we welcome the new year, our fighting spirit remains unwavering." The villagers erupted in excitement once more. "Long live Konoha! Long live the Hokage!" Damn! That was a hell of a speech. Konoha is the best. Voice crack. But enthusiasm has its limits. 1 hour later. Hiruzen was still talking. "Ahem, one more thing I'd like to add. And finally, let me emphasize once more." By now, half the audience had already left. The ones who remained looked half asleep, barely holding on. Even Obito, standing on the platform, had started nodding off. Among the crowd, a woman with long black hair and sunglasses tugged at the sleeve of the pineapple-haired man beside her. "Shikayu, look at Obito!" "Haha." Shikayu rubbed his temples and chuckled helplessly. That guy, still the same as always. He could sleep anywhere, anytime. Memories of their academy days resurfaced in his mind. A spacious classroom, the perfect temperature, sunlight streaming through the windows. Obito would doze off the moment class started in the morning and stay asleep all the way until school ended in the evening. "Ryoko, how do you think someone like him even became Hokage?" Ryoko giggled. "If you don't get it, Shikayu, there's no way I would. But I still remember that moment in the land of grass, when he stood up to protect us." Shikayu paused, then smiled. "Yeah, maybe that's it. Because deep down, he has the heart of someone who protects his comrades." On the platform, Hiruzen finally wrapped up his speech. Minato let out a silent, exhausted sigh. "You're not the one retiring today, nor the one being inaugurated. Where did you get all these emotions from?" "Sigh, they say old trees have deep roots, and old people have a lot to say. I really hope I don't turn out like this when I'm older." Minato glanced to his side. Obito was still swaying on his feet, barely awake. Lowering his voice, Minato whispered without moving his lips. "Obito, wake up. It's our turn now." Obito jolted awake, blearily wiping away the bit of drool at the corner of his mouth. "The inauguration ceremony for the 5th Hokage begins now." Hiruzen gestured with his arm, motioning for Minato and Obito to step forward. The two quickly moved up. Placing a firm hand on Obito's shoulder, Hiruzen introduced him to the crowd. "Standing beside me is the hero who ended the 4th Great Ninja War, and the man who will now take on the mantle of 5th Hokage, Uchiha Obito." The crowd erupted into cheers once more. "Obito-sama is the best. 5th Hokage! 5th Hokage! We're counting on you, 5th. Lead Konoha to even greater heights." Hiruzen turned to Minato. "Minato, I'll leave the rest to you." Minato nodded slightly, then removed his Hokage hat. In front of the entire village, he solemnly handed it over to Obito. "Obito, from this moment on, Konoha's future is in your hands." Obito accepted the hat with both hands, nodding firmly. "I understand, Minato-sensei." Under the watchful eyes of the village, Obito held up the hat and laughed. "From this day forward, I, Uchiha Obito, am the 5th Hokage." He raised his voice, enunciating each word clearly. "The prosperity of Konoha rests upon my shoulders." The cheers reached a deafening climax. "Ah! Hokage-sama! So cool! 5th Hokage, you're making my legs go weak. We support you, 5th. Happy New Year!" Among the crowd, Naruto was shouting at the top of his lungs. "I won't lie, this new 5th Hokage is my big bro." Beside him, a boy sneered. "I remember you. Blondie, you're bluffing again. Last time when the 4th Hokage took office, you said he was your dad." "Naruto?" Before Naruto could even defend himself, the boy continued. "And even if the 4th is your dad, and the 5th is your brother, so what? Konoha values strength, not connections. What's there to be smug about? Your dad is your dad, your brother is your brother. If you've got the guts, why don't you become Hokage?" Naruto stomped his foot in frustration. "Databao. I wasn't lying. And listen up. One day, I, Uzumaki Naruto, will definitely become Hokage. The boy named Gooden burst out laughing and turned to his friend. This guy's bragging so hard, he even changed his own last name. I'm dying! His friend, however, looked utterly horrified. Gooden, he wasn't lying. I think he really is the fourth Hokage's son. Huh? Gooden's laughter stopped dead. Among the crowd, the Uchiha clansmen activated their Sharingan one after another, their glowing red eyes a reflection of their uncontained excitement. Decades of pent-up frustration had finally found an outlet, replaced now by pride and triumph. At last, the Uchiha had a Hokage. Even the grandmothers of the clan had activated their Sharingan in unison. Uchiha Inaho clasped his hands together and shouted, Obito, well done! Itachi, standing nearby, was stunned. Since when did Uchiha Inaho and Obito have such a close relationship? Rin stood behind Obito, one hand resting on her slightly swollen belly. Watching her husband stand tall on the platform, her eyes shone with warmth. Obito-kun, you finally made your dream come true. I told you, I would always be watching over you. Hee. You did amazing, Obito-kun. Beside her, Kakashi sighed with deep emotion. Yeah, this guy has been shouting about becoming Hokage ever since we were kids. Who would have thought he'd actually make it? As the morning's celebration came to a close, Kakashi helped support Rin. Rin, let's get you to the back for some rest. You'll need to save some energy for the real event this afternoon, your wedding. Chapter 276, The Secret Technique That Shocked Obito. Above the Hokage building, Obito held the Hokage's ceremonial hat, striking a series of dramatic and stylish poses amid the exclamations of the crowd. And the moment he placed the hat on his head, the Hokage succession ceremony officially concluded. At that instant, a familiar system notification echoed in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for becoming the 5th Hokage. Reward received, 2 God-tier technique packs. Obito was itching to open his rewards immediately. However, he had to deal with the endless stream of high-profile figures coming forward to congratulate him. Reluctantly, he put his curiosity on hold. It wasn't until the midday banquet for the village elders that he finally found a moment to check his rewards. Focusing his mind, he entered the system's inventory. 2 exquisitely wrapped gift boxes floated quietly in the interface. I wonder what I'll get this time. Obito rubbed his hands together eagerly and tapped one of the boxes with his thoughts. Prompt, do you wish to open 2 God-tier technique packs? Without hesitation, Obito urged impatiently in his mind. Yes, yes. Hurry up, system. System, ding. Gift pack opened. Congratulations. You have obtained the supreme secret technique, Uchiha Slam. Congratulations. You have obtained the supreme secret technique, 18 style. The moment he saw the notifications, Obito couldn't hold back his reaction. What the hell? In the midst of the refined and composed luncheon, where everyone was speaking in soft, dignified tones, his thunderous outburst was like a bolt of lightning. Instantly, every eye in the room turned toward him in shock, confusion, or outright disbelief. Swish! 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 Dozens of stunned gazes locked onto him at once. Kakashi and Shikayu both sighed, simultaneously raising their hands to rub their temples. Obito, you just took office, and you're already embarrassing yourself. Seeing the questioning stares from all around, Obito realized he needed to salvage the situation. Thinking quickly, he grabbed his wine cup, stood up, and raised it toward the crowd. Being recognized by all of you and becoming Hokage. I can hardly put into words how excited I am. So let me propose a toast. My gratitude to you all is in this cup. Hizashi immediately followed his lead, raising his cup to smooth things over. Haha. The Hokage is young and full of energy. Surely, with him at the helm, Konoha will be just as vibrant and full of life. The other seasoned figures in the room quickly caught on and joined in. Hokage-sama is too humble, we have all witnessed your excellence firsthand. I like a leader with spirit. Hokage-sama, let's drink to that. Once the tension had been diffused, Obito discreetly wiped the sweat from his forehead and sat back down. Minato, sitting beside him, leaned in and whispered. Obito, you're the leader of the village now. You represent Konoha's image. From now on, you need to be more mindful of your words and actions in public. Obito nodded rapidly. Understood, Minato-sensei. Damn you, system. He complained internally. What kind of so-called secret techniques are these? You're messing with me. Forget the 18 style, I won't even ask about that. But what the hell is Uchiha Slam? You call this a supreme secret technique? The system, unwilling to back down, responded in a sultry voice. System-issued products are always top tier. Why not check the skill descriptions before passing judgment? Obito scoffed but decided to take a look anyway. Uchiha Slam, a supreme secret technique passed down through generations of the Uchiha clan. Damn, I don't even want to keep reading this. Muttering under his breath, he forced himself to continue. Once this technique locks onto an opponent, even a god will be unable to use chakra and will be forced to rely on taijutsu alone. His mouth twitched involuntarily. So this is why Urashiki didn't use ninjutsu against Sasuke but relied on Akatsuki elbow strike instead? Heh. Well, if that's the case, then maybe this technique really does deserve the supreme title. But still, it's way too ridiculous. With a resigned sigh, he moved on to his second skill. 18 style, a supreme secret technique that can be used not only on enemies but also in interesting situations. Reading this line, Obito's eyes lit up. Now this is something useful. As he studied the detailed description and accompanying illustrations, a new world of possibilities unfolded before him. So taijutsu can be applied like this. No wonder it's a supreme secret technique. I feel like my understanding of taijutsu has just skyrocketed. That afternoon, beneath the warm sunlight, the wedding ceremony of Obito and Rin took place on the Hokage building's ceremonial stage. Obito wore a sleek black kimono with a deep red sash cinching his waist. He stood tall and dignified, his usually unruly black hair tied neatly into a warrior's knot. His sharp features and carefree demeanor made him look both elegant and commanding. Beside him, Rin had her long hair styled into an elaborate updo, adorned with a golden phoenix hairpin. She wore a white silk kimono embroidered with golden patterns, exuding a regal grace. Every movement of hers was poised and dignified. Down below, the morning's onlookers had returned, this time to witness the wedding spectacle. Hokage-sama and his wife look absolutely perfect together. The chemistry is unreal. Yeah. They're a match made in heaven, talented and beautiful. Ugh. So handsome men really do only end up with beautiful women, huh? Bruh, shut up with that nonsense. What's with the whining? Wah, my dream of marrying the Hokage is shattered again. Granny, judging by your age, you'd probably be a few generations older than the 5th Hokage. I fell in love and had my heart broken at the same time, all in an instant. Honey, what do you think of this kunai in my hand? Think I could stab you with it? The atmosphere was lively and buzzing with excitement. But for Obito and Rin, the world had shrunk down to just the two of them. Obito gently held Rin's delicate hand, pulling her into a warm embrace. A small smile tugged at his lips. Rin-chan, I promise to give you a grand wedding. With all these people witnessing our union, are you satisfied? Rin leaned into his chest, her voice soft and full of emotion. Idiot. More than anything, I just wanted to marry you sooner. I've been waiting for this day for so long. Obito tenderly cupped her face and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. Sorry to keep you waiting, Rin-chan. From now on, your joys will be my joys, your sorrows my sorrows. As long as I live, I will do everything in my power to keep that smile on your face. Chapter 277, Newlyweds and a New Mission. The next morning, Dawn gradually broke over the horizon. The soft morning sunlight filtered through the gaps in the leaves, gently illuminating Obito's face. He let out a faint murmur as he woke from his slumber. Carefully, he moved his hand away from his wife's soft embrace, ensuring he didn't wake her. With a blissful smile, he sat up and quietly made his way outside. Well then, time to prepare breakfast for Rinchan. With a flicker of Kamui, Obito appeared at a pastry shop. After purchasing Rin's favorite treats, he used Kamui again and returned home in an instant. Rin stirred at the noise, her large eyes blinking sleepily. She rubbed her eyes and asked curiously, Obito-kun, why have you been getting up so early lately? You used to love sleeping in. You always said, my body is made of iron, but my bed is a magnet. Saying this, Rin suddenly recalled their school days. Back then, she would often stop by Obito's house to pick him up for school, worried he'd be late again. She smiled, her large eyes filled with warmth and nostalgia. Hee, to think that clumsy little boy from back then has now become my husband. Obito playfully pinched Rin's petite chest and grinned. Of course, I wake up early to make breakfast for Rinchan. Rin, feeling touched, immediately threw herself into Obito's arms, rubbing her small head against him affectionately. I suddenly feel so happy, Obito-kun. I don't want to go to work today. I just want to stay snuggled up with you. Obito gently patted Rin's smooth back. Be good and get dressed first. You'll catch a cold like this. How about I talk to Konoha Hospital and get you a few months off? Rin shook her head. No need. I'll be on maternity leave soon anyway. I want to use this time to clear up some of my pending work first. Obito skillfully helped Rin get dressed and smiled. Alright, Rinchan is the best. But don't push yourself too hard. If you feel unwell, you have to come home and rest, okay? Rin stretched lazily and held out her arms. Yes, I know. Obito-kun, I'm hungry. Carry me to breakfast. Obito shook his head solemnly. Incorrect command. Obito bot failed to start. Rin let out a small humph and playfully punched him, blushing slightly. Oh, Obito, dear, carry me. As you command. Obito laughed and scooped Rin up into his arms, carrying her to the dining area. After a sweet and loving breakfast together, Obito used Kamui once again to drop Rin off at the hospital. See you later, Rinchan. See you later, Obito-kun. Watching Rin disappear into the hospital, Obito sighed, reluctant to part from her. Then, he decided to head to the bookstore to buy a cookbook and improve his culinary skills. After all, he was now merely the honorary Hokage and had no need to deal with the daily grind of the Hokage's office. Just then, the system's sultry voice echoed in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host and his beloved on your wedding. Wishing you a lifetime of happiness. A new main quest has been issued. Please check at your convenience. Obito chuckled and responded in his mind, thanks, system bro. I'll check it out now. With that, he opened the system interface and looked at the new set of choices. Option 1, talk no jutsu Akatsuki Ashiki and convert him to your side. Completion reward, Divine Tree Sapling Coordinates plus Supreme Secret Technique Pack *1. Option 2, severely injure Akatsuki Ashiki's true body and turn him into an external avatar. Completion reward, none, advanced deduction applied as handling fee. Option 3, kill Akatsuki Ashiki and completely destroy Kara. Completion reward, Akatsuki Ashiki's source, incomplete, plus Detective Conan Gadget Pack *1. Detective Conan Gadget Pack may contain Conan's skateboard, Heiji's motorcycle, Amuro's sports car, Kaido Kid's glider, and other physics-defying detective gadgets. Special note, the mission has a 2-year time limit. Failure to complete it within the time frame will be considered an automatic failure. Scanning through the options, Obito immediately noticed something odd. System bro, don't tell me you have hosts in the Detective Conan world too? The system remained oddly silent, as if feeling guilty. Obito didn't press the matter. Instead, he focused on analyzing the three choices before him. Talking no jutsu Ishiki won't be easy. He's not like Kaguya, who had no choice but to betray the Akatsuki clan. Besides, that guy only cares about personal gain. I have nothing valuable enough to sway him. In Ishiki's eyes, all of the chakra on this planet already belonged to him. Trying to bribe him with his own property would be utterly ridiculous. Having ruled out option 1, Obito directly asked the system, "System bro, how much of Ishiki's strength would an external avatar retain? And if I absorb the incomplete source, how much of his power would I gain?" After a brief loading pause, the system responded swiftly. The external avatar retains Ishiki's full power and all Akatsuki traits. If the host absorbs the incomplete source, he can achieve roughly 2/3 of Ishiki's strength in Karma mode. This power boost stacks with the host's own abilities but does not grant Akatsuki's special traits. Hearing this, Obito furrowed his brows slightly. Each has its own advantages. One offers Akatsuki traits, including the ability to use Karma for reincarnation. The other provides a stackable boost. Even if it's only 60 to 70% of Ishiki's power, it's still enough to double my combat strength in the short term. As for the detected gadgets, forget it. Even if they were free, he wouldn't take them. After careful consideration, Obito made his choice. System bro, I choose option 2. System, Omega, roger that. Sigh. Obito let out a long sigh. Just when he had started to relax, that familiar sense of urgency returned. Living in this world, there's never a moment of peace. 2 years will pass in the blink of an eye. I need to start planning now. After a moment of contemplation, he decided that this matter required Madara's input. Leaving a shadow clone behind, he set off for Madara's base. At Madara's hideout, a young man suddenly appeared, laughing wildly. Ha ha ha. Grandpa Madara, I have great news for you. I, Uchiha Obito, am now the 5th Hokage. Before the silent Madara could respond, a surge of blue chakra erupted nearby, cracking the ground beneath them. A voice, filled with chilling disdain, rang out. Is this a joke? A mere Uchiha brat became Hokage? Chapter 278, A Conversation with Tobirama and Hashirama. Feeling the overwhelming surge of killing intent, Obito turned to look beside him in shock. Wild Tobirama has appeared. Just as Obito was contemplating whether to let him experience the crushing weight of tens of thousands of chakra units, an even more terrifying chakra eruption burst forth, instantly suppressing Tobirama's intense aura. Hashirama, his face dark and serious, glared at Tobirama and spoke in a deep voice. Tobirama, put your hand down. Tobirama snorted softly, slowly withdrawing his hand before turning his head to the side. Fine. Just don't go flaring up your chakra for no reason, big brother. Both brothers retracted their chakra simultaneously. Hashirama scratched his head before breaking into a hearty laugh, completely transforming from his previously domineering presence. Ha ha ha, my bad, my bad. Watching Hashirama laugh so carefreely, Obito felt an unexpected sense of familiarity. No wonder Madara-sama liked him so much. That smile really does have that classic Uchiha vibe. Before Obito could dwell on the thought for long, Madara's voice cut through the air, clearly displeased. His cold gaze swept toward Tobirama as he questioned sharply, Senju Tobirama, my grandson has saved the shinobi world and Kana Agakura multiple times. Why is he unworthy of being Hokage? Hashirama, standing beside him, nodded repeatedly in agreement. That's right, Tobirama. How many times have I told you? Don't underestimate the Uchiha clan. Tobirama scoffed dismissively. Big brother, you know as well as I do that the Uchiha are not exactly saints. Hashirama's expression darkened. When he spoke again, there was a hint of anger in his voice. Tobirama, I told you to stop talking like that. Do you have any idea how terrifying the power within this child is? If he wanted to, he could wipe out Konoha effortlessly. Tobirama furrowed his brows and retorted coldly. You're too naive, brother. Just from hearing his laughter, I can tell. This Uchiha brat has already started showing symptoms. Someone who cannot control his emotions is unfit to be Hokage. Even though Tobirama was essentially calling him insane, Obito wasn't the least bit offended. Instead, he watched the brothers bicker with great amusement. Ha, this is way better than watching the anime. Taking advantage of the pause in their argument, Obito spoke up. Second Hokage-sama, if I may interject. Not every Uchiha undergoes a personality shift upon awakening their Sharingan. Take me, for example. I was chosen as Hokage because I earned the people's trust. Of course, it has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that my sensei was Hokage and that I'm absurdly strong. Seeing that Obito could still converse with him calmly, a flicker of surprise flashed through Tobirama's eyes, and his furrowed brows gradually eased. Noticing this, Obito smirked to himself before continuing. Nowadays, many among the Uchiha clan have embraced the will of fire. I hope, second Hokage-sama, that you can let go of your outdated prejudices against my clan. Hashirama stepped forward with a broad grin and enthusiastically threw an arm around Obito's shoulder. So the Uchiha have truly integrated into Konoha now? That's wonderful. Young man, tell me everything about the village. What's it like now? Having the chance to chat with Hashirama, the legendary first Hokage himself. What Naruto fan wouldn't jump at that opportunity? And so, Obito and Hashirama entered an intense discussion. Ha ha ha. Hee hee. Watching the two of them whispering, occasionally letting out strange chuckles, Tobirama found himself reconsidering his opinion of Obito. He glanced at the ever-scowling Madara beside him and casually asked. Uchiha Madara, whose descendant is this brat? Madara didn't even bother looking at Tobirama as he replied irritably. Uchiha Kagami. A poor fool brainwashed by you. So he's Kagami's descendant. No wonder. Under the divine protection of seniority, a string of invisible numbers began to float above Tobirama's head. Affection +1 +1 +1 +1. However, just because his opinion of Obito had improved didn't mean he liked Madara. Tobirama immediately countered, choosing the village and peace over blind loyalty to one's clan is not tragic. The real tragedy, Madara, is that you see only a single tree and not the whole forest. Madara smirked mockingly and turned to face him. Heh, Tobirama, do you know what happened to Uchiha Kagami? He was murdered and had his eyes stolen by Danzo, your ideological successor. Right up until his death, he never understood why. Why? Because he believed in the lies you fed him. With that, Madara ignored Tobirama's thunderous rage and instead turned his attention to Obito and Hashirama, who were still happily chatting away. Hashirama, my grandson is far more impressive than your granddaughter. Hashirama patted Obito's shoulder with a proud and emotional expression. Young man, thank you for taking the time to tell me all this. Knowing that the village has flourished so well, I can die with no regrets. Obito thought for a moment, then poked Hashirama's arm and said, First Hokage-sama. You do realize you're already dead, right? Hashirama froze for a second before bursting into laughter. Ha ha ha. Oh, right. I completely forgot. Oh no. Obito, caught off guard, found himself laughing along with him. Even Madara, drawn in by the contagious laughter, walked over and joined them. Ha 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 ha. Tobirama. For the first time, he felt that his normalcy made him completely out of place among these three lunatics. A few minutes later, just as Madara was really getting into it, Hashirama suddenly slumped over. Madara, dissatisfied, complained, You're too weak, Hashirama. Obito and I usually laugh for at least 10 minutes. You need to train harder. How else are you supposed to entertain me in the future? To spare Hashirama from feeling inadequate, Obito quickly changed the subject. Madara-sama, since both of you are here, does that mean you've captured Orochimaru? Madara nodded smugly. Of course. Not only did I capture him, but I also helped him find his true self. Saying this, Madara turned and called out into the base, "Come out, Orochimaru." Footsteps echoed from the shadows. A tall figure emerged from around the corner. Orochimaru. Obito tilted his head, smiling slyly. "Long time no see, Orochimaru." Orochimaru gave a slight bow and responded with composed elegance. "Long time no see, Lord Obito." "Oh?" Obito scrutinized Orochimaru closely, noticing a significant shift in his demeanor. "Madara-sama says you found your true self?" Orochimaru nodded and replied calmly, "I once pursued truth with everything I had, only to be met with failure time and time again. Now, rather than becoming the wind that spins the windmill, I've decided to wait for the wind and move with it." Obito stroked his chin, summarizing, "So basically, you realized you can't beat anyone and decided to go with the flow?" Orochimaru. "I mean, technically yes, but did you have to put it like that?" Chapter 279, Returning to Konoha Together. Orochimaru visibly stiffened in embarrassment. Seeing this, Obito stepped forward, patted his shoulder, and chuckled. "Haha, just joking. As long as you've come to your senses, that's what matters. Now that I'm the 5th Hokage, come back to Konoha with me and continue serving the village." Without hesitation, Orochimaru bowed respectfully and answered, "Orochimaru is willing to serve Lord Obito." With their conversation settled, Tobirama, who had been waiting impatiently, finally spoke up. "The naturally brilliant Uchiha Obito, can you tell me about Shimura Danzo?" At this moment, Orochimaru tactfully vanished. Obito nodded and began listing out Danzo's transgressions. Well, persuading Kaguya to split off Black Zetsu could be left out. But everything else? Dump it all on him. Danzo, here comes the blame. He also deliberately instigated wars and attacked his fellow villagers. In the end, I could no longer tolerate it and had to kill him. I don't care about someone's status. If they endanger Konoha, I will not hesitate to act. As soon as Obito's resolute words fell, he noticed a string of numbers appearing above Hashirama's head. Favorability +1 +1 +1 +1 +1. Well said, young man. Hashirama cheered, waving his arms in excitement. You and I share the same ideals. Now I can entrust Konoha to you with peace of mind. You're speaking too soon, Lord Hashirama. Tobirama also gave a slight nod, acknowledging Obito's words. Danzo had turned into this kind of person, he deserved to die. Madara, however, scoffed and spoke with clear displeasure. Tobirama, did I give you permission to speak to my grandson? Before Tobirama could flare up, Madara raised a hand and launched a Shinra Tensei, sending him flying. Uchiha Madara, his voice fading into the distance. Hashirama panicked and ran after him. Tobirama, my dear brother. Freed from the Senju duo, Madara pulled Obito aside and smiled. You've come at just the right time, Obito. Grandpa needs your help. I want to revive Izuna, but I'm worried that he... Madara glanced at the Senju brothers in the distance and shot Obito a knowing look. Obito immediately understood. I see what you mean, Grandpa Madara. If there was anyone in the Uchiha clan more fiercely pro-war than Madara, it was definitely Uchiha Izuna. Back in the day, every time Madara and Hashirama seemed to be getting along too well, just about to call a truce, it was always Izuna who pulled Madara back. We were all killed by the Senju, have you forgotten? No, don't be deceived by those Senju bastards. What are you doing? Hurry up and kill him. I'll help you. It was always like that. Izuna's hatred for the Senju was pure and absolute. And since Tobirama had personally killed him, that grudge would never be resolved. If Izuna were resurrected, he wouldn't stop until he stabbed Tobirama at least a few times. After thinking for a moment, Obito shook his head and said, Grandpa Madara, my persuasion alone won't be enough. How about this instead? Here's the plan. As Obito laid out his idea, Madara's eyes lit up with excitement. Excellent, Obito. Let's do it your way. Just then, the furious Tobirama returned, having recovered from being flung away. He shoved his brother aside and pointed an accusatory finger at Madara. "Madara, you've gone too far." Madara smirked coldly and, without a word, sent another Shinra Tensei flying his way. Boom! Tobirama went flying again. Ah! Cursed, evil Uchiha Madara. Seeing this, Obito quickly used Bansho Tenin to pull Tobirama back before he disappeared into the horizon. Grandpa Madara. Lord Tobirama, please, calm down. Obito and Hashirama quickly stood between them, fearing they might actually start fighting. Humph. Both snorted at the same time. Epsilon sad face Omicron asterisk, phew. Obito wiped the sweat off his forehead and forced a smile. Lord Hashirama, Lord Tobirama, would you two like to return to Konoha with me? The village has changed a lot over the years, and Lady Tsunade has changed quite a bit as well. Hashirama and Tobirama exchanged glances, clearly tempted. They truly wanted to see how the village had developed. And it's been so long since I've seen little Tsunade. I wonder how she's doing now. Has she gotten married? Had children? Or racked up a mountain of gambling debt? Thinking about this, Hashirama suddenly slumped into a black and white sketch of himself. Tobirama glanced at him, confused by his brother's latest dramatic reaction. Turning back to Obito, he crossed his arms and asked, if we return to Konoha, will it cause any problems for the village? Hashirama also returned to normal and leaned in eagerly. Yes, yes. Will we be a burden, young man? Obito waved off their concerns with a smile. Of course not. In fact, I believe many people in Konoha would be eager to meet you both. However, for various reasons, it would be best to keep your identities hidden in public for now. I'll arrange a private meeting with Konoha's current leadership so you can all have a proper discussion. Hashirama beamed. All right. Let's go with your plan, young man. Tobirama didn't say anything, but his gaze toward Obito softened considerably. Konoha. Four unassuming figures strolled down the bustling streets. One of them gawked at everything like a country bumpkin seeing the city for the first time. He repeatedly muttered under his breath, "What is this? What is that?" Passers-by cast odd and disdainful glances at him. Where did this clueless hick come from? Such a hillbilly. Look at how ignorant he is. Embarrassing. If only they knew that this so-called hillbilly was none other than the first Hokage, their beloved founder. Yes, the four figures were none other than Hashirama, Tobirama, Orochimaru, and Madara, all in disguise. Orochimaru patiently walked beside Hashirama, explaining everything to him. Meanwhile, Tobirama and Madara subtly distanced themselves, pretending they didn't know Hashirama. Too embarrassing. As for Obito, he had already gone ahead to the Hokage's office to make arrangements. It's wonderful. Hashirama sighed, taking in the lively village and the smiles on people's faces. Are you sure they're not laughing at you? Seeing Hashirama return to normal, Tobirama approached again. Hiruzen and the fourth Hokage did well. Konoha's progress exceeds my expectations. Hashirama nodded with a silly grin. Yes. When we see them, I must thank them properly. Madara sneered. Hashirama, you're the first Hokage. Why would a senior thank his juniors? Tobirama smirked at Madara. Which is why my brother was Hokage, and you weren't. Madara scoffed. Humph. I don't need recognition. As long as you remember that I am the Hokage's grandfather. Hashirama, Tobirama. Just then, a familiar voice called out. Lord Hashirama, Lord Tobirama, Grandpa Madara, I've made the arrangements. Come with me. And you too, Orochimaru. With that, the five of them headed toward the Hokage's office. Chapter 280, The Five Kage Summit. Konohagakure. Outside the conference room on the top floor of the Hokage building. Hiruzen and Minato stood at the entrance, accompanied by Konoha's high-ranking officials and the heads of its major clans, more than 20 people in total, all waiting anxiously. At that moment, 5 figures emerged from around the corner of the hallway. Everyone, including Hiruzen and Minato, instinctively held their breath, a subtle tension creeping into the air. Obito was the first to quicken his pace, stepping forward with a smile. "No need to stand around out here, everyone. Let's head inside and talk." Minato exchanged a glance with Obito before giving a slight nod to those behind him. Without delay, the group respectfully ushered inside the conference room. Moments later, several squads of elite Umbu appeared, swiftly setting up layers upon layers of barriers outside the room. Once inside, the disguises fell away. Obito gestured toward the 4 people beside him. "Let me introduce you all." He pointed one by one. The first Hokage, Hashirama-sama. The second Hokage, Tobirama-sama. My grandfather, Uchiha Madara. And a certain someone who finally found his way back, Orochimaru. Before anyone could react, a green-clad figure blurred past Obito and threw herself into Hashirama and Tobirama's arms. "Grandfather! Second great-uncle!" Hashirama laughed heartily, opening his arms wide and lifting her up in a familiar embrace. "Tsunade! You've grown so much." Even Tobirama, usually composed, allowed a rare smile to surface. Seeing this, Minato let out a quiet sigh of relief. Phew! This didn't go exactly as expected, but so far, so good. The 3 continued chatting as if no one else was there. Truth be told, no one present dared to interrupt such a heartwarming moment. All they could do was patiently wait. Meanwhile, Jiraiya quietly approached Orochimaru, pulling him aside. Without warning, he threw a punch at Orochimaru, his voice low yet filled with emotion. "You bastard. You actually came back?" Though his words sounded accusatory, the joy beneath them was unmistakable. For some reason, Orochimaru's lips curled into a smirk. "Humph, idiot. I didn't come back for you." After a few more words between Hashirama, Tobirama, and Tsunade, the 2 Senju brothers finally turned their attention back to the room. "Thank you, everyone," Hashirama said, his expression filled with gratitude. "Konoha is everything I ever hoped for." Then, out of nowhere, the first Hokage suddenly bent at the waist, bowing at a full 120 degrees. The entire room froze, bewildered by the gesture. The first Hokage, is this approachable? This isn't what we expected at all. Tobirama, standing beside him, sighed deeply and pinched the bridge of his nose. Epsilon sad face Omicron asterisk, sigh. Catching the silent plea in his brother's eyes, Hiruzen stepped forward, hurriedly helping Hashirama up with a helpless smile. "First Hokage-sama, you're being too kind. We can't possibly accept such a gesture. Konoha is our home too. Protecting and building it is simply our duty." Tobirama nodded slightly, then turned his gaze toward Hiruzen and Minato. "Hiruzen. And Namikaze Minato. You two have done well. You've managed Konoha with great order. You've honored the title of Hokage." Minato and Hiruzen immediately expressed their humility, insisting they were unworthy of such praise. Tobirama continued acknowledging those present, and soon, the room was filled with courteous exchanges. Until a certain someone, who had been silent this whole time, finally lost his patience. "Humph. A bunch of hypocrites." Madara's cold laughter sliced through the atmosphere. "All this empty flattery, what's the point? It's tedious." Just like that, the warm mood in the room was doused in icy silence. Uchiha Madara. Tobirama's sharp gaze locked onto Madara, his expression hostile. The tension in the room spiked instantly. "Oh no! These 2 aren't about to start fighting right here, are they?" At that moment, Obito took a step forward, positioning himself between them. Reaching out, he tugged lightly on Madara's sleeve, his voice calm and measured. "Grandfather, if this is boring you, why don't we just..." Madara's eyes flickered with interest. He nodded. Let's go. If I have to listen to any more of this, I might actually throw up. Obito nodded slightly before turning to another person in the room. Fugaku-san, I'll have to trouble you to come with us. Fugaku's eyes darted between Minato and Hiruzen, as if hoping for some kind of response. However, the looks they returned carried only one message. Go on, Fugaku. For the greater good, you must make this sacrifice. All right. Fugaku sighed, standing up to follow the two out of the room. Once the last Uchiha had left, Koharu Uchiha moved closer to Tobirama, her face etched with frustration. Second-sama. Did you know that Uchiha Obito became the 5th Hokage? Tobirama frowned slightly, turning to his former student. I do. Why? Koharu looked stunned. Sensei always despised the Uchiha. Why does he seem so indifferent now? She quickly composed herself, carefully choosing her words. Don't you think that's a bit inappropriate? Tobirama shot her a cold glance, his tone sharp. Inappropriate? Would you rather take the position yourself? Koharu immediately clamped her mouth shut. She wasn't stupid, she could hear the displeasure in his voice. But why? He was the one who always told us to keep the Uchiha in check. He was the one who warned us never to show them mercy if given the chance. Yet now, he doesn't care that an Uchiha became Hokage? Koharu's mind reeled in disbelief. This must be what betrayal feels like. Outside the Hokage building, Fugaku walked alongside Madara and Obito, feeling distinctly out of place. How exactly am I supposed to address them? As if reading his thoughts, Madara glanced at him sideways and said flatly, You can call me great-granduncle. As for Obito, he paused, then smirked. Technically, you should call him uncle. Fugaku froze. Obito burst out laughing. No need for that, Fugaku-san. Just call me whatever you're comfortable with. Don't listen to my grandfather. Fugaku gave a stiff nod, wiping away a bead of cold sweat. Great-granduncle, 5th Hokage-sama, why did you call me out here? Obito didn't hesitate. We're planning to revive a certain Uchiha from the Warring States era, Madara's younger brother, Uchiha Izuna. But, we're concerned he might react too strongly. So we want to create a comfortable environment for him. Understanding dawned in Fugaku's eyes. I see. What do you need from me? Obito scratched his head. Gather a few dozen Uchiha who have awakened their Sharingan. Bring them to the Naka shrine. Fugaku nodded. I'll summon them immediately. Give me 20 minutes. Madara, pleased with his efficiency, smirked. Humph. You're not bad, kid. Go! Feeling unexpectedly honored, Fugaku quickly hurried off to gather his clansmen. All right, grandfather, Obito said, turning back to Madara. Let's head into the Kamui dimension. I have everything prepared. Once we revive Izuna, we can take him there directly. Madara nodded. His heart was already burning with anticipation. Izuna. I'll finally see you again. Chapter 281, Brother, you can't do this. Konohagakure. Naka Shrine. The ancient shrine, built of stone bricks, exuded a heavy sense of history and time. Inside the dimly lit hall, candlelight flickered. Dozens of crimson eyes lit up all at once, instantly elevating the atmosphere to its peak. At the center of the gathering, bathed in the eerie red glow, a figure slowly opened his eyes, a body resurrected through Edo Tensei. This place is... His gaze was filled with confusion as he surveyed his surroundings, his hand instinctively reaching for a weapon, only to freeze midair. What might have terrified an ordinary person instead filled him with an inexplicable sense of peace. Madara strode forward excitedly and pulled the figure into a tight embrace. Izuna! The resurrected figure was none other than Uchiha Izuna. This familiar voice, and embrace. His voice trembled with surprise and disbelief. Is it really you? Why do you look like this? And, wasn't I already dead? Why am I? Madara released Izuna and let out a hearty laugh. Because I have obtained greater power, my appearance has changed as well. I took it upon myself to use a forbidden jutsu to bring you back through Edo Tensei. You don't blame me, do you, Izuna? Izuna shook his head firmly and said, of course not. I wished I could see you in our clan again. He paused and scanned the surrounding Uchiha clan members, realizing that he didn't recognize any of them. A hint of hesitation crept into his voice as he asked, what year is it now? Did we win the war against the Senju? Madara's smile stiffened momentarily. However, as the so-called Joker of Konoha, he was skilled at covering his emotions. He shot a glance at Obito, who immediately caught on and stepped forward with a smirk. Izuna-sama, it's been 70 to 80 years since that war. After a brief pause, Obito didn't answer the question directly. Instead, he craftily said, the Senju clan has dwindled to just a handful, while our Uchiha clan still thrives. I don't think I need to spell out who truly won in the end. The surrounding Uchiha members couldn't help but admire Obito's eloquence. Damn, this guy really knows how to talk. No wonder he became Hokage. Hearing this, Izuna's face lit up with joy. That's wonderful. I knew our Uchiha would emerge victorious. Watching Izuna bask in his delight, Obito found the whole situation amusing. Clearing his throat, he adopted a more serious tone. But Izuna-sama, there's something I need to clarify in advance. After the peace treaty was signed, the major clans, Senju, Uchiha, Sarutobi, Hyuga, and others, merged into one entity and have long since coexisted in peace under the village system. A village? Isn't that Madara's longtime dream? Izuna pondered for a moment before turning to Madara. Madara, in the end, you really did join forces with Hashirama? Madara nodded, his expression complicated. To end the era of war and bring peace to our clan. Yes. And time has proven that Hashirama's idea was correct. Izuna snorted softly, displeased. Then tell me, who leads this so-called village now? Is it our Uchiha clan, or the Senju? Obito smirked, his expression wicked. The Senju clan has long since faded from history. As for me, well, I am the current Hokage and supreme leader of our village. Hearing this, Izuna's furrowed brow gradually relaxed. Well, if that's the case, then I suppose I can accept it. Having resolved his doubts, Izuna suddenly smiled apologetically and turned to Obito. Forgive me, I haven't asked for your name yet. Obito grinned and said, Izuna-sama, my name is Uchiha Obito. We're about the same age. If you don't mind, you can just call me Obito. Before Izuna could respond, Madara kicked Obito square in the chest, sending him tumbling to the ground. You brat, show some respect. Call him Grandpa Izuna. Obito and Izuna exchanged looks, both feeling utterly uncomfortable. Obito dusted himself off and adjusted his robes. How about we just stick to our own generations? This is too weird. Izuna nodded repeatedly, shooting Obito an approving glance. Izuna's eyes suddenly widened. He pulled Madara aside and whispered urgently. So, Madara, who did you end up with? Recalling the past, Izuna boldly speculated. Was it Chika? Yudo? Kotoko? Madara smacked Izuna over the head, exasperated. Do you think your brother is some lust-driven fool? Obito is my recognized successor. Where is your mind wandering? Izuna's Sharingan flared as he muttered under his breath. So, Madara, you're over 100 years old and still a virgin, huh? If it had been in the past, Izuna would never have dared to say something so rude. But now that he had been reunited with his brother and had learned that the Uchiha had triumphed over the Senju, he was in high spirits. He couldn't help but be a little cheeky. Truly, he was starting to resemble a certain younger brother of the future. Hokage's office. The atmosphere among the village elders was heavy. Koharu Udatane spoke first, her voice grave. Sensei, is the Akatsuki clan truly that terrifying? Tobirama crossed his arms and nodded slightly. Even if my brother and I join forces with those two Uchiha, we might still be no match for an Akatsuki powerhouse. Why do you think I put up with that bastard, Uchiha Madara? That was only a small part of the reason. Hiruzen took a deep drag from his pipe, his expression dark. This could be troublesome. What would you have us do, Lord Second? Tobirama shook his head and said coolly, just manage the village properly. This isn't something you can interfere with. Oof. That hurts, Lord Second. Just then, the meeting room doors were suddenly kicked open. A figure strode in, laughing maniacally. Ha ha ha. The infamously wicked Senju Tobirama. Open your eyes and see who's back. Tobirama sneered and turned his gaze toward the figure. Well, if it isn't my defeated foe, Uchiha Izuna. Izuna sneered back and stepped forward, their faces inches apart. Humph. Tobirama, you just refuse to admit defeat. Your Senju clan has been reduced to a handful, and you still dare speak to me with such arrogance? A handful? Hashirama, who had been chatting with his granddaughter, suddenly froze. His voice trembled as he asked, Tsunade, is what Izuna said true? Tsunade nodded silently. Seeing this, Tobirama turned sharply, his piercing gaze landing on his student. His voice was ice-cold as he growled, the Senju clan, reduced to a handful. Sarutobi, explain yourself. Hiruzen's face turned pale, and he blurted out, Sensei, this is all Danzo's fault. Koharu and Hamura immediately chimed in, that's right, Sensei. It was all Danzo's doing. Chapter 282, The Birth of Little Obito. Ha 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 ha. Izuna burst into laughter as he walked out of the conference room. Seeing Tobirama Senju suffer a setback, what a delightful sight. Sorry, third Hokage-sama, but there's really no stopping this guy. Obito shot Hiruzen an apologetic glance before following Izuna out of the room. Danzo taking the fall again? Too common to be interesting. There was nothing worth listening to here. On the way out, Obito glanced at Izuna, who was clearly in a great mood. He couldn't hold back his thoughts. Seriously? The man had just been revived, yet he showed no interest in checking on the current state of his clan. No intention of catching up with Madara either. The first thing he did after opening his eyes was provoke Tobirama Senju. If you think about it, really think about it. Wasn't that kind of like playful flirting? Izuna caught Obito's silent stare and chuckled. Obito, why don't you show me around our village? Obito gave him an okay sign. No problem, this way. As they strolled through the village, they arrived at the Ninja Academy just in time for lunch break. Children ran around laughing, their faces beaming with joy. Izuna paused, his expression shifting as his gaze softened. War. Peace. He watched silently for a while before his eyes widened in surprise. Huh? Obito raised a brow. What's up? Izuna shook his head, still looking puzzled. Nothing. I must have been mistaken. For a split second, he thought he saw a little boy who looked exactly like himself as a child, practically a perfect copy. It had to be his imagination. Izuna, do you want to stay in the village for a while? Obito offered, I can arrange a place for you. Izuna tilted his head, thought for a moment, then nodded with a smile. Sure. I'll leave it to you, Obito. Not just Izuna. Even Hashirama and Tobirama had decided to remain in the village for some time. Meanwhile, after leaving behind two shadow clones, Obito and Madara once again returned to Ryochi Cave to continue their training. Inside Ryochi Cave, a vast open space was nearly filled with countless figures. Dozens of Obitos and Madaras clashed in fierce battles, their sparring sessions growing more intense by the second. A few others sat cross-legged on the ground, exchanging insights on senjutsu and refining their techniques. Time passed in a blur. Months went by. Their unstable realms had solidified, and their strength had improved considerably. Obito, we've got plenty of time. We could easily train for a few more years. Madara paused, looking at him seriously. Why are you in such a hurry to take down Akatsuki Ishiki? Is there something you're not telling me? Ishiki had long since reached his peak. Meanwhile, they were still growing stronger. Time was on their side. Obito nodded slightly. I have a bold plan, but it will only work if we deal a critical blow to Ishiki within the next 2 years. You'll understand when the time comes. We might even gain something completely unexpected from him. Madara didn't press further. He simply nodded. As long as you have a plan. I've made some preparations as well. But time is short. We need to intensify our training. Obito scratched his head, looking a little sheepish. Heh, about that. I might need to take a break for a while. Madara raised a brow. Obito grinned awkwardly. Rin's due date is coming up. I want to stay with her for the next 2 weeks. Madara blinked in surprise before chuckling and patting Obito's shoulder. Ha! Of course. Stay with her and take good care of my granddaughter-in-law. When the baby is born, call me. I already have a gift in mind. Obito was touched and nodded firmly. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, he laughed and said, You know, if Rin gives birth to a boy, I was thinking of naming him after you. At Konoha Hospital. Believe it or not. Was currently sitting outside the delivery room, utterly nervous, his ears strained to catch any sound from inside. Hands over his face, he groaned anxiously. What do I do, Kakashi? I'm freaking out. Kakashi, who had been supporting Obito's weight, gently patted his back and spoke in a soothing tone. Don't worry, Obito. Rin will be fine. Yeah, right. Like I'd believe you. You said the same thing last time, and then you went and stabbed my wife. Obito grimaced. Just go, Kakashi. I don't want to hear you right now. Kakashi? Should I really leave? Just then, the delivery room door swung open. Obito and Kakashi immediately jumped to their feet and rushed over. A nurse stepped out, carrying a small bundle in her arms, smiling brightly. Both mother and child are safe. Rin has given birth to a healthy baby boy. Congratulations, Hokage-sama. Tears welled up in Obito's eyes as he threw his arms around Kakashi and sobbed. Kakashi. Rin and we have a son. The nurse. Hokage-sama, that sounded kind of misleading. Noticing the nurse's odd look, Kakashi quickly shoved Obito away and cleared his throat. Go see Rin and your child already. Oh! Right. Obito hurriedly turned toward the nurse, reaching out to hold his son, but she stepped back and shook her head. Hokage-sama, newborns need to be handled carefully. You should check on Rin first. Obito scratched his nose in embarrassment. Heh, got it. With an awkward laugh, he rushed into the delivery room, heading straight for Rin. She looked weak but smiled gently as he held her hand. Rin, you worked so hard. She caressed his cheek softly. Silly, you're a grown man. A Hokage, no less. Aren't you worried people will laugh at you for crying? Obito sniffled. But seeing you like this makes my heart ache. Rin sighed, rubbing his head affectionately. All right. No more crying, big baby. I just gave birth, and now I have to comfort you, too. You're going to wear me out. The nurses nearby giggled, their faces practically glowing with excitement. Oh my god! I never imagined Hokage-sama was like this. Cool and domineering in public, soft and adorable in private. This character gap is too sweet. Obito continued fussing over Rin while gently channeling his chakra into her, helping her recover. Then, Rin blinked up at him. Obito-kun, have you thought of a name for our baby? Obito grinned mischievously. I do have an idea, but I'm not sure if you'll like it. Rin-chan, what do you think of the name? Madara? Sounds powerful, doesn't it? Rin. Chapter 283, Target, Akatsuki Ashiki. Konoha Year 57. Land of Fields. Yoru Village Conference Room. Last year, Obito made a lot of plans for himself. A year had passed, and he had completed absolutely none of them, because he was too lazy. At this moment, he was holding a child in his arms, looking thoroughly impatient as he interrupted Deidara's rambling. "Hey, Deidara, can you lower your voice? You're scaring the kid." Deidara glanced at the baby in Obito's arms, who was clearly enjoying himself, giggling away. Still, he loudly protested, "But, leader, I've already become the Successor and led Iwadakure into our alliance. I completed the mission you gave me, so why won't you let me return to the organization, HM?" Obito played with the child and rolled his eyes. "I told you to integrate Iwadakure into Yoru Village. You're still a long way from completing that mission." Deidara wanted to argue further. "But..." Obito cut him off. Alright, I know you're bored all by yourself in Iwadakure. How about this? Sasori doesn't have much to do lately. I'll send him to Iwadakure to keep you company. That work for you?" Deidara immediately turned to Sasori with an expectant look. "That would actually be nice." Sasori was silent for a moment, then gave a slight nod. "Fine. I'm currently researching a new type of puppet. I can work on it anywhere." Deidara cheered. "Awesome! Finally, someone to keep me company, A fleeting smile crossed Sasori's eyes before he returned to his usual calm demeanor and turned to Obito. "Leader, I'd like you to bring me more of that fire called Amaterasu next time. As you said, these inextinguishable black flames make an excellent power source." Obito flashed an OK sign and grinned. "No problem. I'll deliver it straight to Iwadakure for you." The idea of using Amaterasu as an energy source had been a random spark of inspiration. After all, Amaterasu never seemed to burn anyone to death, so what else could it be used for? Then it hit him. It burns everything. It doesn't go out until its target is reduced to ash. An eternal flame, with extremely high heat, this is gold. If he could use sealing techniques to contain and control the black flames, keeping them perpetually burning, and then integrate them into puppets. Holy crap! Grandma, I made it! Did I just invent a perpetual motion machine? A machine that can run indefinitely with just an initial energy input. If he could later combine this with scientific ninja tools and cybernetic prosthetics, the age of ninjas would end, and the cyberpunk era would begin. Lost in his self-indulgent daydream, Obito turned to Kisame and said, "Kisame, after this meeting, bring that sparrow guy and come with me to Konoha." Kisame was momentarily taken aback, his heart stirring slightly. Seeing Kisame's hesitation, Obito smiled. "I promised you I'd lead you to the truth," Chapter 146. "From now on, you can settle down in Konoha, Kisame." Kisame nodded heavily, bearing a satisfied, shark-like grin. "Got it, Obito-san." Kakuzu gave Obito a sidelong glance and said in a dry tone, "Leader, if you take all these people with you, the village's revenue will drop significantly." Obito rocked the baby in his arms, replying lazily, "If revenue drops, we'll just find a way to make up for it from someone else's pockets. It's time for our allies to step up. Those who can't see the bigger picture should make way for those who can." Kakuzu nodded and fell silent, already calculating his next big money-making scheme. Obito scanned the room and suddenly noticed someone missing. He frowned. "Where's Haiden?" A voice called from outside the door. "Right here, boss." Haiden strode in, scythe slung over his shoulder, a smirk playing on his lips. "Didn't feel like listening to Kakuzu's nonsense, so I showed up an hour late on purpose. Looks like I arrived at just the right time." "Boss, what do you need me for?" "If it's not about sacrifices, don't bother. I'm aiming for the top spot in Jashin-sama's rankings this year." Obito grinned, tempting him. "Our target this time is a god, an even higher quality soul than the White Snake Sage. You in? Hayden's eyes immediately lit up. TCH, do you even have to ask, boss? Konoha. Only a few days remained until the mission deadline. Obito had decided it was time to deal with Akatsuki Ishiki. But first, he had to find someone to babysit. He handed the chubby child in his arms over to Kakashi, putting on a serious face. Kakashi, I'm leaving Hagoromo with you for a few days. That's right, Uchiha Hagoromo. That was Obito's son's name. Originally, he had planned to name the child Uchiha Madara. Even Madara himself had no objections and seemed secretly pleased about it. But then, when Azuna caught wind of it, he had an amazing idea. I've got a better name, why not call him Uchiha Tobirama? Of course, he then gleefully went to taunt Tobirama with it. Tobirama was not amused. He sneered, I think the kid's adorable. Why not name him Uchiha Azuna? And just like that, things spiraled out of control. To prevent daily stabbing matches between the two, Obito had to come up with a name himself. But he sucked at naming. After a long struggle, he only managed to come up with two options, Uchiha Obito Jr. and Uchiha Eileen. In the end, he just borrowed someone else's name. Hagoromo had a nice, classical ring to it. Rin and Grandma approved, so it was settled. Kakashi instinctively took the baby, then froze. Wait, you're a kid with Rin, and you're leaving him with me? I don't know how to take care of a kid. Obito sighed. Rin's busy with work, and I've got things to do. You're the only one I can trust. Just wing it. Hagoromo adapts fast. Kakashi looked utterly defeated. But I'd never kept anything alive. Obito patted his shoulder, eyes deep with meaning. That's not true. You take good care of your little cat, don't you? I believe in you, Kakashi. You can do this. Kami bless you. And with that, he vanished. Kakashi stared down at the baby grinning up at him, completely lost. How the hell do I even feed you? At least leave some instructions. Ryuchi Cave, now an empty husk. Per Obito's orders, all the snakes had been relocated to safety under the little girl's care. Now, this place was the battlefield Obito had chosen as Akatsuki Ishiki's grave. His team was ready. Hashirama, Tobirama, Hayden, Madara. This lineup was carefully selected. Obito smiled as he activated the karma mark, linking himself to Ishiki. At that moment, deep within Kara's base, Ishiki smirked. How remarkable. You've defrosted to this extent in just 2 years? A black portal opened before him. He stepped through it and looked around, quickly taking in the assembled team. Oh? Waiting for me? Obito met his gaze and smirked. That's right. Today, this place will be your grave. Ishiki chuckled. You think killing me will be that easy? He took a long look at Madara before grinning. Another one who has split the Ten Tails essence, huh? He bowed elegantly and spoke in a slow, deliberate tone. Since you wish to kill me, you must also be prepared to be devoured by me. Now, let's see what you're capable of. Chapter 284, The Great Battle Against Ishiki, Part 1. Hayden swung his scythe high above his head and charged straight at Ishiki. What the hell are you talking about, bastard? Just die already. Epsilon sad face Omicron asterisk, sigh. Obito let out a heavy sigh. That guy Hayden, all his good looks must have come at the cost of his intelligence. But letting him go in first to test the waters isn't a bad idea. He and Madara raised their hands at the same time. Each of them summoned a truth-seeking orb, which transformed into sturdy six-path staves. The legendary staff-wielders. With their staves in hand, the two hovered in the air and rushed toward Ishiki. Hashirama clapped his hands together and was about to call out. Wood style, tree. Tobirama, standing beside him, interjected uncertainly. You haven't forgotten that non-senjutsu attacks are ineffective against him, have you, big brother? Oh! Hashirama immediately deflated. Tobirama. But the moment he remembered that he was fighting alongside Madara, his spirit reignited. He clapped his hands together and entered Sage mode. Ha! Tobirama sighed, flinging several flying thunder god kunai ahead before placing a hand on his brother's shoulder, ready to assist. Heh, it's been a while since I stretched my limbs. Let's play. Ishiki chuckled indifferently. He raised his hand and made a slight grasping motion toward Haiden, who was charging in first. Swish! 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 In the next instant, countless sharp black rods materialized out of nowhere, impaling Haiden like a pincushion. He crashed to the ground, dumbfounded. The game had barely started, and his screen had already gone black. He raged into his comms. What the hell? What the actual hell just happened? No one responded. Obito and Madara, holding their staves, leaped past Haiden and attacked Ishiki. From Haiden's brief encounter, they had already figured out Ishiki's technique. First, he used his dojutsu to shrink the black rods down to a microscopic scale. At such a minuscule size, even if they pierced the body, they were nearly impossible to detect. Then, once they made contact, he instantly restored them to their full size, dealing devastating damage. Wait a second, why does this feel so familiar? Obito pondered for a moment before blurting out. Oh crap, he's an Akatsuki Ant-Man? Ishiki used the same move again, making a grasping motion toward the two Madara attackers. But this time, Obito and Madara were prepared. With their incredible speed, they dodged and pressed their attack. Obito gripped his six-path staff in a sword stance and slashed down at Ishiki. Madara appeared at Ishiki's side, striking with a precise upward sweep of his staff. At the same time, Hashirama and Tobirama arrived. Sage Art, Wood-Binding Seal. Thick branches burst from the ground beneath Ishiki, growing wildly. In the blink of an eye, they had wrapped around him, restraining his movements. Madara seized the opportunity. Like throwing a grenade, he hurled a truth-seeking orb directly into the entangled Ishiki. However, Ishiki vanished before their eyes, reappearing a short distance away. Their attack had missed. Obito muttered under his breath. Knew it wouldn't be that easy. Tobirama, deep in thought, spoke up. Did he shrink himself instantaneously? TCH, that's a real pain of an ability. Ishiki lightly clapped his hands, smiling. I take back what I said before. Your strength is indeed impressive. Haiden, beep. 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 As a courtesy, I should take this seriously as well. With that, Ishiki vanished once more. Dekokuden. As soon as Ishiki activated his dojutsu, Obito immediately sensed his location. He stepped in front of Tobirama and conjured a shield of lava release. Lava release, radiant blazing triple guard. A rain of black rods shattered against the shield and fell harmlessly to the ground. Ishiki reappeared, tilting his head in amusement. You predicted my attack and countered with a large-scale jutsu? Ha, this is getting interesting. Behind Obito, Tobirama commented seriously. You seem a little slow on the uptake. At any other time, I'd be laughing at your ridiculous jutsu names. Madara charged at Ishiki again, shouting. Senju Tobirama, now's not the time for idle chatter. Limbo, border jail. A shadowy figure emerged from Madara's body, silently flanking Ishiki from behind. A surge of violet lightning exploded forth, engulfing the entire area. Its sheer destructive power was enough that even Ishiki hesitated to make contact. Hashirama followed closely behind Madara. With a casual clap of his hands, countless branches spiraled outward. Sage Art, 100 Spear Thrust. The 100 in its name was no exaggeration. Hundreds of sharp branches shot toward Ishiki like spears. Ishiki's eyes darkened slightly. Against such wide-range senjutsu techniques, shrinking alone might not be enough to evade them entirely. Yamatsu Hirasaka. A swirling red-black vortex opened behind Ishiki. But at that moment, Obito's Rinnegan gleamed with a purple light. Sure. Space rippled violently. Ishiki's portal wavered, becoming unstable. Not good. His pupils shrank. That brief delay was enough. 2 real attacks and 1 from Limbo closed in simultaneously, mere moments from striking him. At the last possible moment, Ishiki shrank his body. He dodged the 100 spear thrust and Limbo's attack, but he still took a direct hit from part of the Ein release. Obito immediately pursued. His eyes flashed sharply, trying to lock onto Ishiki's minuscule form. But that tiny speck darted around so fast. His Sharingan's Tomo were practically colliding into each other. Before he could pinpoint Ishiki's location, Ishiki reappeared some distance away. His pristine white robes were stained with dust, and a few minor wounds marred his body, though slightly disheveled. He still carried himself with absolute composure. Every ability has its weaknesses. You've taught me a valuable lesson. He dusted off his robe and smiled. As thanks, I'll go all out now. Ishiki's excitement surged. Even his restraint on chakra consumption was tossed aside. After all, with Obito as his vessel, he could afford to let loose. The karma within him surged. A curved horn sprouted from the left side of his forehead, arching backward before rising up on the right. Boom! 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 An overwhelming aura burst forth like a tidal wave. The sheer pressure was worlds apart from before. Swish! Ishiki vanished once more. This time, it wasn't from shrinking. He was simply too fast to track. Even with their Rinnegan, Obito and Madara could barely catch glimpses of his afterimages. Chapter 285, Reincarnation, the True God. 2 newly summoned shadow clones of Tobirama barely even had a moment to react before they were instantly pierced through by black rods. With a soft puff, they dissipated into smoke. However, that brief moment was enough. Tobirama managed to pull out the chakra-suppressing rods embedded in his body. Without hesitation, he used the Flying Thunder God technique to retreat to a safe distance. That was close, Tobirama thought to himself. Obito and Madara simultaneously formed hand seals and unleashed the same Sage Art. Sage Art, Inorganic Reincarnation. This is a reincarnation jutsu that grants life to inanimate objects and allows them to be controlled. Meanwhile, Ishiki's dojutsu, Sukuna Ikona, was incapable of shrinking anything that possessed life. This was a technique Obito and Madara had practiced numerous times in Ryuchi Cave. With their combined precision and meticulous control, countless sharp stone spikes emerged in dense clusters, surging forward like a tidal wave aimed straight at Ishiki. Each wave built upon the last, forming an unstoppable barrage. Ishiki merely chuckled dismissively, a golden gleam flashing through his right eye. No matter what technique you use, the result will be the same. However, as he activated his dojutsu, he was stunned to find that the incoming inorganic tide remained unaffected. The waves of stone continued to surge toward him with undiminished momentum. For the first time, Ishiki's expression shifted. What? I can't shrink them? Abruptly, he shrank his own body, instinctively attempting to open a spatial portal for escape. But Obito was not about to let him get away so easily. The moment he sensed the fluctuation of space, he activated Kamui with zero delay. Shoo! Kamui's power might not be enough to twist Ishiki's neck off, but it could certainly disrupt him, preventing him from using any spatial techniques. Since he had come here, he wasn't leaving. At that moment, Ishiki was like a fish trapped in a barrel. Boom! 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 Deafening explosions resounded as Ishiki was instantly swallowed by the stone waves. However, neither Obito nor Madara showed any sign of celebration. Madara's expression remained grim as he spoke. It doesn't seem like we actually hurt him. Obito frowned slightly and nodded. Too small. Our techniques can't inflict any significant damage. Just then, Hashirama, who had been gathering chakra for the past few seconds, suddenly spoke up. I just came up with a new sage art technique that might help. Pressing his hands together, he solemnly chanted. Sage art, sea of blossoms descent. The ground trembled violently as massive mounds bulged upward, each spanning dozens of meters. Endless thick vines burst forth from beneath the earth, growing wildly. Within moments, they covered the ground beneath their feet and spread even further outward. Seeing this, Madara's expression softened with nostalgia. Ah, so you've incorporated sage art into that technique. Back in the day, he had almost been subdued by this very jutsu. Giant flowers bloomed along the vines, their petals unfolding layer by layer, releasing an overwhelming concentration of pollen that stained half the sky yellow. No exaggeration, this dosage could probably knock out tens of thousands of people instantly. Meanwhile, Tobirama had already dragged a cursing and struggling Haiden far away. Otherwise, that idiot would have been the first to go down. Obito and Madara hovered in midair, their sharp gazes locked onto the battlefield below. It seems this guy doesn't possess much of the Ten Tails power. Do you think Lord Hashirama's sage art will work on him? Madara shook his head. Hard to say. It depends on how small he can shrink himself. As they spoke, the sea of blossoms and the waves of stone suddenly shattered apart, and a battered figure shot into the sky. It was Ishiki. Obito sighed heavily. This guy is ridiculously hard to kill. But in Boruto, Ishiki hadn't been this strong before his reincarnation. Hovering in the air, Ishiki looked down at them, his expression dark and furious. To be forced into such a situation by a group of mere mortals, his patience was wearing thin. Jigen's body is reaching its limit. I might as well reincarnate now. From his perception, the karma on Uchiha Obito had already been fully decompressed. That meant Obito could serve as his vessel. Crack! Crack! Soft fracturing sounds echoed. From overuse of chakra, Jigen's body had reached its breaking point, crumbling apart inch by inch. Ishiki didn't hesitate any longer. He gave the group a small bow, smiling as he spoke. I believe I've upheld the proper etiquette. Now then, my dear friends, it's time to say goodbye. With that, Ishiki's eyes lost their luster, and his body fell lifelessly from the sky, crashing heavily onto the ground. Haiden's eyes widened. Oi, what the hell? Did this guy just off himself? Did I just lose all my followers? No one paid him any attention. Everyone was staring at Ishiki with tense expressions. Moments later, Ishiki slowly rose from the ground, his face filled with shock and confusion. Just now, at the revival interface, when he tried to select a reincarnation vessel, he found that Obito's portrait was grayed out. This character is not yet unlocked. Please top up your balance? With no other choice, Ishiki had to reincarnate using Jigen's deteriorating body. Now, his form had completely returned to that of an Akatsuki. White robes, black pants, pale skin, a crown-like horn on his head. One eye gold, one eye white, an eerie yet regal presence. Oi! Haiden's eyes were now bulging from their sockets. Why the hell is this guy alive again? Still, no one answered him. Haiden, can someone turn on their mic? Ishiki and Obito locked eyes in midair. From Obito's gaze, Ishiki read a lot. This man had anticipated this outcome from the start. Curious, Ishiki asked, can you tell me how you did it? Obito nodded. I cracked the karma you left behind. It's completely under my control now. As he spoke, he activated the karma within him. A curved horn grew from his head, and black markings spread rapidly across his body. Seeing this, Ishiki genuinely sighed in admiration. Uchiha Obito, you truly are a remarkable little one. In 10,000 years, you are the first to unravel the secrets of the Akatsuki. Obito, however, remained curious. Jigen's fragile body can't handle your full power. At this rate, you won't last long, will you? Ishiki nodded slightly, speaking in an unhurried tone. I have about 2 days before this body gives out. What, were you expecting me to panic? Obito gave a slow nod. Seeing Ishiki remain so composed, he couldn't help but feel disappointed. Ishiki chuckled, tilting his head slightly. Don't be so sure of your victory just yet. The outcome of this battle remains uncertain. Once I eliminate you lowly creatures, I will simply find a new vessel. Madara sneered, folding his arms. Too bad for you, Akatsuki Ishiki, you won't get that chance. Yet, his eyes carried an unprecedented seriousness. They were about to face a fully reincarnated Akatsuki. A grueling battle was inevitable. Ishiki swept his gaze over them indifferently. Now then, let me show you the true power of a god. Perhaps before you die, you will realize how laughable it was to challenge one. Chapter 286, The Great Battle Against Ishiki, Part 2. Rinnegan, Kamui, only mobility is enhanced, strength remains unchanged. Unable to deal severe damage to 6 paths level beings or higher. Otherwise, staring at someone to death would be ridiculous. It'd mean you could straight up slaughter the entire Akatsuki clan, haha. Boom! The ground beneath Ishiki's feet exploded. His figure vanished instantly from everyone's sight. Not good. Lord Tobirama, watch out! Obito shouted in alarm. Before Tobirama could react, Ishiki was already at his side. With a vicious punch, he obliterated half of Tobirama's body. It was only at that moment that Tobirama managed to activate the Flying Thunder God technique. Whoosh! After pulling some distance away, Tobirama's expression darkened as he quickly formed hand seals. Ishiki then noticed a thin talisman had been stuck to his arm. A glint of admiration flashed through his eyes. So he managed to evade and counterattack at the exact moment I struck him? Heh. Forbidden Jutsu, mutually multiplying explosive tags. By summoning more explosive tags with each detonation, this technique creates an infinite chain of explosions. A commendable attempt, but futile. A golden light flickered in Ishiki's right eye. The countless explosive tags floating in midair suddenly shrank to a size imperceptible to the naked eye. Crackle, crackle. The terrifying Forbidden Jutsu, powerful enough to shatter mountains, now looked like nothing more than a string of firecrackers. Seeing his younger brother being humiliated, Hashirama's fury erupted. With a fierce clasp of his hands, he roared, "Sage art, wood! Too slow! Dekokuden!" Ishiki laughed, his golden eye gleaming even brighter. Swish! 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 Thousands upon thousands of tiny black rods materialized around him, covering the 100-meter radius surrounding him. The next moment, they rapidly returned to their original size, launching an indiscriminate barrage. Like a field of black thorns, the rods stretched out for hundreds of meters in an instant. Clang! 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 Obito phased through them, cursing under his breath. Damn it! Dekokuden was a near-instant ability, there was no time to counter its activation. Madara formed a barrier using the truth-seeking orbs, negating the attack with Inyang release. But the others weren't so fortunate. Hashirama's hastily constructed wooden wall was effortlessly pierced. Tobirama teleported away using the Flying Thunder God technique, unwilling to get close. As for Haiden, well, he had been lying on the ground the entire time, so there was nothing much to say about him. Obito's Rinnegan flared as he absorbed both Hashirama and Haiden into his Kamui dimension. With the way things were going, Hashirama and the others were no longer in any shape to continue fighting. Oh? So you've moved the nuisances out of the way? Ishiki chuckled indifferently, slowly approaching Obito and Madara. Well then, I must trouble the two of you to die quickly, I'm on a tight schedule. Obito and Madara stood side by side. For the first time, their expressions were grim. Of course, that didn't mean they weren't excited. Ha ha ha. Obito! Ha ha ha. Grandpa Madara. IKASO. In perfect unison. The two burst into laughter and transformed into streaks of light, charging at Ishiki from opposite sides. Boom! Faced with their pincer attack, Ishiki instantly shrank to evade. Seeing this, Obito rapidly formed hand seals and spewed out a torrent of searing liquid. Sage Art, Lava Release, Super Deluxe Hot Soup Bomb. Ishiki quickly ascended into the air to dodge. In a flash, he appeared behind Madara, returning to full size as he lashed out with a kick. Swish! Madara raised his truth-seeking staff to block it, then activated his Renegade's Limbo ability, summoning a shadowy clone to strike at Ishiki. Kamui. At the same time, Obito used his own dojutsu, attempting to restrain Ishiki for even a moment to create an opening for Madara. Ishiki faltered slightly. TCH. Annoying. Faced with an unavoidable multi-pronged assault, he opted for brute force. Dekokuden. Dozens of enormous black cubes materialized above him and came crashing down. Madara's expression shifted, and he instantly abandoned his attack. His instincts warned him, getting trapped in those eerie cubes meant certain death. After neutralizing their attacks, Ishiki vanished once more. Obito and Madara both raised their hands, shouting in unison, Shinra Tensei. A terrifying repulsive force rippled outward, wave after wave, surging toward Ishiki. Is that all you've got? Ishiki sneered as he reappeared, seizing Madara's wrist in a lightning-fast grip before hurling him away. Bastard! Don't underestimate Uchiha Dojutsu. Madara instantly swapped places with his Limbo clone, driving an elbow strike toward Ishiki's chest. His right eye spun rapidly, further amplifying his speed. At the same time, Obito swung his truth-seeking staff, aiming for Ishiki's ribs. Humph. Ishiki snorted, activating his dojutsu. 10 black rods shot out from his sides at different angles, aiming for both of them. Kamui. The rods vanished into thin air, while their attacks continued forward unabated. Ishiki's brow furrowed slightly. Blocking Madara's strike with his forearm, he shifted his weight and lashed out with a kick toward Obito. But his attack missed. Not good. Taking advantage of Ishiki's mistake, Obito lunged forward, wrapping his arms tightly around him. Uchiha Bear Hug. Instinctively, Ishiki tried to shrink himself, only to realize his dojutsu had stopped working. Nani? What? This is a sacred secret technique passed down through generations of the Uchiha. Obito gritted his teeth. Even gods can be locked down by it. Talk no jutsu master, all attributes increased by 20%. Grandpa Madara. Fire at will. Obito roared. Madara reacted swiftly, unleashing a laser beam from his mouth. Sage Art, Storm Release Light Fong. Damn it! In a moment of desperation, Ishiki instinctively resorted to the Akatsuki clan's ultimate technique. Akatsuki Elbow Strike. He raised his elbow and viciously smashed it toward the back of Obito's neck. Madara's pupils shrank. Obito, dodge! Obito had already sensed the danger. He let go of Ishiki just in time. Had that brutal strike landed, his head would have been rolling on the ground by now. The legendary Akatsuki elbow strike, its sheer power was terrifying. Breaking free, Ishiki spun around and struck Obito, sending him flying. As he prepared to pursue, he was interrupted by another of Madara's attacks. Dekokuden. He launched several black rods at Obito while turning to clash with Madara once more. Meanwhile, Tobirama appeared beside Obito, teleporting him to safety. Take this. The dust inside can obstruct Byakugan vision, Tobirama said, handing him a concealed weapon. Thank you, Lord Tobirama. Taking the weapon, Obito dashed back into battle. Up ahead, Madara was fighting with increasing fervor. Akatsuki Ishiki. I, Madara, acknowledge your strength. Ishiki sneered. Arrogant lowly creatures. I need no acknowledgement from you. He raised his hand and summoned several black cubes. Madara clapped his hands together and activated Shinra Tensei on himself, repelling the cubes to safety. Grandpa Madara. Let me assist you. Obito flung the concealed weapon, instantly releasing a cloud of dust. Poof! A fine mist spread, successfully blocking Ishiki's vision. Chapter 287, The Fall of a God. Losing his vision, Ishiki remained unfazed. Dekokuden. Once again, he activated his dojutsu, unleashing a barrage of yin-yang black rods indiscriminately around him. Clang! Madara deliberately deflected a black rod, creating a faint noise. As expected, Ishiki was drawn to the sound, swiftly dashing in that direction. Hiding in the mist, Obito's eyes gleamed with a predatory light. Silently, he raised his six-path staff and thrust it fiercely toward Ishiki's back. Got you. Ishiki smirked. At that moment, his hand firmly grasped Obito's six-path staff. How is this possible? Obito's expression changed dramatically. He immediately released the staff and vanished into the mist once more. Ishiki remained indifferent, gripping the staff tightly as he swung it toward Madara. Clang! 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 Relying purely on instinct and prediction, he matched Madara blow for blow. Soon, the mist dissipated. Gazing at Obito and Madara, Ishiki sighed. You two are really giving me a headache. If I can't deal with these two quickly, I might actually be dragged down to my demise. Summoning another black rod, Ishiki's expression turned more serious than ever. Whether I kill you or you kill me, let's settle this quickly. Though it seemed like he was addressing them, it felt more like he was speaking to himself. His aura surged once more, his overwhelming energy far exceeding what it had been before. Obito frowned, his body tensing instinctively. So, you're really going all out now, Akatsuki Ishiki. Ishiki tilted his head, a trace of melancholy in his voice. Yeah, I suppose so. How ironic. A god like me, forced to this point by the likes of you. Originally, as long as he didn't overuse his chakra and further burden his body, this vessel could last another 2 days. But now, after unleashing his full power, that time had been cut to less than half. I am granting you the highest honor of the Akatsuki clan. I hope you will show me the same courtesy. Kill me quickly, or become a part of me. Ha ha ha. A golden light flashed in Ishiki's eyes, and black cubes once again filled the sky. Kamui. Obito attempted to absorb them with his dojutsu, but failed. Madara swiftly dodged the falling cubes, using one as a foothold to propel himself into the air. Raising his staff high, he brought it down toward Ishiki. Good! Ishiki roared. He swung his black rod in a wide arc to intercept Madara's strike. Boom! A shockwave burst out as Madara was forced back 3 steps, his arm numb from the impact. Meanwhile, Ishiki stood firm, unmoving, raising his hand to launch another volley of black rods at Madara. Sage Art, Lava Release. Obito countered with a wave of molten lava, melting the incoming rods. He then moved to stand alongside Madara, preparing for another attack. Obito, Kamui. Madara, Bancho Tenin. Ishiki, Dekokuden. All 3 activated their respective dojutsus simultaneously. A warped space, a shifting gravitational field, and a barrage of black rods filled the battlefield. After an intense exchange, none had gained the upper hand. Obito closed in, swinging a punch at Ishiki's face. Ishiki sidestepped, grabbing Obito's arm, then spun his hips to kick Madara behind him. Clang! Madara raised his staff to block the kick and, in one fluid motion, twisted it upward, aiming between Ishiki's legs. From afar, Tobirama, Omega Omega Madara, you truly are evil. Ishiki remained calm, clamping the staff between his legs. With a sudden burst of strength, he hurled Obito toward Madara, who was charging forward once more. However, Madara didn't even flinch, his punch maintaining its terrifying speed and force. Just as Obito phased through him, Madara's fist continued forward, smashing into Ishiki. Dekokuden. Kamui. Obito instantly teleported the incoming black rods away. But Ishiki had anticipated this. He thrust a black rod straight toward Madara, who made no effort to dodge, allowing the rod to pierce through his body. Something's wrong, Ishiki suddenly realized. Too late! Madara smirked. He had used his limbo clone to take the hit, evading the attack while preparing his next move. Sage Art, release Thunder Array. Lightning branched out like an intricate web, descending upon Ishiki. His expression darkened as he attempted to dodge, but Obito immediately activated his ability. Kamui! Damn it! With no other choice, Ishiki shrank his body, enduring the full force of Madara's technique. The sheer power of the purple lightning left even him struggling. When he finally returned to his full size, his body was riddled with wounds. Filthy lowly creatures. Killing intent burned in Ishiki's golden eyes. Seeing Ishiki in such a battered state, Obito nearly cheered. We did it! After fighting Ishiki for so long, this was the first time they had truly injured him. His real body. Kamui! Before Ishiki's wounds could fully heal, Obito used his dojutsu to snatch a drop of his blood. Ishiki remained wary, expecting another attack. But to his surprise, Obito and Madara simply stood there, unmoving. Something's off. Suspicion flickered in Ishiki's eyes. But he had no time to dwell on it. He launched another attack. Boom! 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 The three clashed again. Despite their efforts, Obito and Madara were quickly overwhelmed, barely able to defend themselves. Yet, even as they were beaten down, they still wore victorious smiles. Why? Why do you look like that? Ishiki roared, his strikes becoming more ruthless. He knocked Madara to the ground, lifting his foot to crush his skull. But then, he froze. A gaping hole had suddenly appeared in his chest. What is this? Ishiki's mind struggled to comprehend what had happened. Obito and Madara hadn't even touched him. Obito let out a long sigh. TCH. That idiot Haiden always messes up at the worst moment. But hey, at least he made it in time. Smirking, he ran a finger across his throat and looked at Ishiki. Sorry, Akatsuki Ishiki. Looks like you lost today. Ishiki ignored him. Aarg. Pain exploded in his skull as if blades were shredding his brain. Crack, crack. Blood splattered as fractures spread across his face, deepening by the second. Through the cracks, Obito could see the raw flesh beneath. Ishiki slowly fell to his knees. Even as his body was torn apart, he smiled. A calm, elegant smile. Holding on to the last remnants of his consciousness, Ishiki gazed at Obito, speaking each word with difficulty. Uchiha. Obito. You won. But I did not lose. Chapter 288, Akatsuki Obito is now online. As Ishiki slowly collapsed, Obito chuckled, not taking the man's final words to heart. Perhaps Ishiki still believed he had a chance to turn the tables, that one day he could resurrect himself from within Obito's body. Maybe, in the Akatsuki's perspective, as long as someone inherited his power, he was never truly dead. Or perhaps Ishiki had simply come to terms with life and death, seeing an honorable battle to the end as befitting of his noble status. Obito couldn't be bothered to think too deeply about it. Instead, he opened his system interface and checked the notification that had just popped up. Ding! Host has critically injured the main body of Akatsuki Ishiki. Before the target dies, please make physical contact with him. Obito glanced at Ishiki, who lay motionless on the ground. The light in his eyes was fading fast, he was clearly about to kick the bucket. Wasting no time, Obito stepped forward and placed his hand on Ishiki's head. Ding! Precondition met. Initiating reverse invasion. At that moment, the battle having concluded, Tobirama teleported beside Madara using Flying Thunder God and frowned. Uchiha Madara, what is Obito doing? Why are you asking me? How the hell should I know? Madara crossed his arms, letting out a mysterious chuckle. Just watch quietly and don't bother my grandson with pointless questions. Tobirama scowled but said nothing more. Before them, the comma mark on Obito's left hand began flowing like liquid, seeping into Ishiki's body. It wriggled like a living organism, spreading to every part of him. Whoa! This is like a venom symbiote fusing with Ant-Man. Obito clicked his tongue in amazement at the bizarre sight. Hey, system, what's the science behind this? The system considered for a moment before responding. I am using the comma within your body as a medium to record your data, then encoding it as a virus and injecting it into Ishiki's body. Since the two of you share the same source, Ishiki's internal defenses cannot effectively recognize or combat the virus. Soon, all of his files will be overwritten. Obito nodded in realization. So, in short, he'll be replaced by my consciousness. Correct, host. After a brief pause, Obito's eyes suddenly lit up as an idea struck him. Wait, system, can I also transfer my renegade abilities to Ishiki? The system quivered slightly before responding. Yes, but it will require an additional fee, 5,000 chakra points. Obito was thrilled when he heard it was possible, until he heard the price. His face immediately scrunched up in distress. System, isn't that a little too expensive? Come on, with the bond we share, shouldn't you? Obito had intended to haggle a bit, but before he could finish, the system suddenly snapped. Shut up. My prices are final. Stop trying to bargain with me. Am I obligated to help you for free? Why should I take a loss on your behalf? Obito was stunned. He often joked around with the system, treating it as if it were a person, but this was the first time he had ever seen it react so emotionally. A bit dazed, he asked, System, what's wrong with you? The system was silent for a moment before responding in its usual monotone electronic voice. Apologies, host. That was an inappropriate reaction. Would you like to proceed with the additional service for 5,000 chakra points? Obito nodded without hesitation. Yes, do it. The moment his words fell, half of his chakra was drained in an instant. Not that he cared. He was about to join forces with Kaguya to siphon chakra from an entire planet. Soon, he'd have tens of thousands, even millions of chakra points. Compared to that, 5,000 was nothing more than pocket change. What really concerned him was why the system had reacted so strangely just now. System, seriously, what's wrong? Did something happen? The system remained silent. Obito pressed on. Did another system dump you? Did your boss run off with his mistress? Or did you find out your little system baby is living in a doghouse? Come on, don't be shy. Whatever's bothering you, just let your bro, let me help. Still no response. Ignoring me, huh? Well, if you're that upset, why not go rinse off? If life feels meaningless, you could always. Shut up, the system snapped. Just take care of yourself. My business is none of your concern. Ding! External avatar, Akatsuki Ishiki, modification complete. Ding! System now going offline. Please, host, behave yourself. Obito, the system's definitely heartbroken. Whatever. I'll figure that out later. First, let's see how my Ant-Man clone turned out. Under Obito's expectant gaze, and beneath the shocked stares of both Madara and Tobirama, the supposedly dead Ishiki suddenly propped himself up and stood. Obito turned his gaze toward Ishiki. His once pristine left eye had now transformed into a deep, rich purple, with 6 crimson tomo floating around the pupil, an eerie yet majestic sight. System, you're amazing. You really gave him my renegade. This gold and purple eye combo looks sick. Akatsuki Obito flexed his fingers before looking up at Obito with a strange expression. This feels weird. One moment, I was just me. The next, I'm Akatsuki Ishiki? Obito stroked his chin, thinking. Kinda like suddenly turning into a shadow clone? Akatsuki Obito nodded. Except I'm a real entity, and I could punch you into oblivion with one hit. Otherwise, yeah, that's a pretty accurate description. The hell? Why am I the one being cloned? This form is ugly as sin. Obito poked at himself with a mischievous grin. Technically, you're the clone. The you that exists now didn't exist a moment ago. Your sense of self only emerged after splitting from me. Akatsuki Obito clicked his tongue. Oh, great. You're saying matter determines consciousness, huh? Obito nodded. Right now, we're both still Obito. But as time passes and our experiences diverge, we might become completely different people. Akatsuki Obito scratched his head, frowning. That's a problem. I need to figure out a way to prevent that. As Obito and his clone casually discussed philosophy, Madara and Tobirama finally stepped forward. Madara eyed Ishiki warily. Obito, what's going on? Did you take control of Akatsuki Ishiki? Akatsuki Obito shrugged. Madara Gramps, control isn't quite right. We're sharing the same consciousness now. Under Madara and Tobirama's stunned gazes, the two Obitos exchanged an eerie smirk before speaking in perfect unison. That's right. I am Akatsuki Ishiki, and Akatsuki Ishiki is me. Chapter 289, Reviving Kaguya. Time flowed like a fleeting shadow, slipping away in the blink of an eye. The battle against Akatsuki Ishiki had already taken place a month ago. At that time, Ishiki's body had been pushed to the brink of collapse, barely holding itself together. But under the system's powerful intervention, his body stabilized once more, transforming into a perfect external vessel. Now, this body was like an insatiable void, continuously absorbing chakra every moment, growing stronger without end. A month had passed, yet it had still not reached its limit. Sometimes, Obito couldn't help but marvel at the thought. If Ishiki had been at full strength back then, we might not have stood a chance against him. During this time, Akatsuki Obito had been attempting to extract Ishiki's memories. But with nearly 10,000 years of knowledge contained within, it was akin to gazing into an endless abyss. After a month of effort, he had only managed to sift through fragments spanning a few thousand years. It's like watching an anime, a Naruto special, The Origins of the Akatsuki. Something else peculiar had happened this month. The system had gone completely silent. Ever since its outburst of rage, it hadn't uttered a single word. What was once an ever-present companion, exchanging banter daily, had suddenly chosen to ignore him. For the first time, Obito felt an unexpected void in his heart. I can't shake the feeling that the system is hiding something from me. Once this matter is settled, I need to find a way to pry some answers out of it. Inside the Kamui dimension, Obito cast aside his distracting thoughts. He held onto Madara, whose eyes remained tightly shut, and together, they sank into the world of Tsukuyomi. Within the crimson space, a graceful figure slowly turned around, her pearly white eyes shimmering. You two dealt with Akatsuki Ishiki so quickly? Such speed, truly surprising. Obito let out a hearty laugh, skillfully sidestepping Kaguya's inquiry before asking. Are you ready to reclaim your body, Kaguya? Her beautiful eyes flickered as she gently nodded. I have awaited this moment for 1,000 years. Madara scoffed, turning his head away in disdain. He couldn't stand Kaguya's pretense, so fake. Obito's Sharingan spun as he gazed deeply at her. We are about to fulfill our promise. I hope that once you are freed, you won't forget what you agreed upon. Kaguya lowered her gaze slightly and nodded once more. We share a common enemy. I have no reason to go back on my word. Madara folded his arms, sneering coldly. You'd better not. Otherwise, I'll kill you myself. Kaguya rolled her eyes, clearly unimpressed. Is Madara trying to play hard to get with Kaguya? Obito chuckled inwardly before his Rinnegan gleamed with power, pulling Kaguya's consciousness out of the Tsukuyomi world. Back in the Kamui dimension, Obito opened his eyes and addressed Kaguya, who was residing within Madara's body. Kaguya, please separate your chakra from Madara's. A few minutes later, the chakra within Madara stirred slightly, signaling that the separation was complete. Humph. Madara's expression darkened as he let out a cold snort. He suddenly reached into his abdomen and forcefully extracted a shrunken husk of the Ten Tails. This separation had cost him nearly a third of his chakra. Boom! 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 As soon as it left Madara's body, the Ten Tails husk rapidly expanded to its original size. Its colossal form, nearly 1,000 meters tall, slammed into the ground, leaving deep craters in its wake. Both Obito and Madara placed their hands on the husk, channeling chakra into it. 10 units. 100 units. 500 units. 1,000 units. By the time they had poured nearly 2,000 units of chakra into it, Obito's face had darkened. Kaguya, that's enough. Are you trying to drain us dry? Sensing their growing hostility, the husk finally ceased absorbing chakra. A faint trembling began. Crack, crack. Layers of wooden-like skin started peeling away. The tremors intensified, fissures spreading across the husk's surface. The moment the vibrations reached their peak. Boom! The husk shattered completely, dissolving into dust. As the residual particles scattered into the air, Akatsuki Kaguya emerged. Her flawless features exuded an ethereal beauty, her figure elegant yet curvaceous. Obito couldn't help but steal several lingering glances. Damn, women really do get more captivating with age. No! Stop! If I keep thinking like this, Rin is going to haunt me. Noticing Obito staring at her, Kaguya's lips curled into a slight smile as she spoke. I appreciate the efforts you both made to restore my body. Now, allow me to return the favor. Obito and Madara exchanged wary glances, silently signaling each other to remain cautious. Although Kaguya appeared harmless, even somewhat naive, they both knew she was anything but. It was never wise to let one's guard down around her. Obito's eyes gleamed dangerously as he spoke, his words carrying an implicit warning. I hope you act wisely and don't make things difficult for us. Kaguya said nothing, merely lowering her gaze with a quiet nod. Satisfied, Obito didn't push further. In the real world, he had already prepared a contingency against her. If she dared betray them, he would eliminate her. Kamui. With that, Obito transported himself, Madara, and Kaguya to a secluded area in the land of fields. Ah! Kaguya took in a deep breath of fresh air, savoring the sensation. After 1,000 years, she was finally free. But just then, a voice, chilling and laced with menace, rang in her ears. Heh! It's been a while, Kaguya. Kaguya spun around in shock. There, standing before her, was a familiar figure. Akatsuki Ishiki? How are you still alive? Ishiki tilted his head, his gaze sweeping over her with quiet amusement. 1,000 years have passed, and yet, you remain as weak as ever. Tell me, Kaguya, what gave you the audacity to betray me back then? Kaguya's body trembled as she turned to Obito, her voice sharp with urgency. Why is he here? Didn't you kill him? A slow, cruel smile spread across Ishiki's face. What, do you think working with these lesser beings is a privilege reserved for you, you treacherous wench? Obito's gaze darkened in irritation. Akatsuki Ishiki, we are merely allies. Watch your tongue. Ishiki smirked, his arrogance apparent. But Kaguya suddenly shook her head, her pale eyes gleaming with realization. No, you're not really Ishiki. A golden glint flickered in Ishiki's right eye, black rods shot forward, piercing through Kaguya's body. What nonsense are you spouting now? Ignoring the rods impaling her, Kaguya's lips curled into a knowing smile as she stared at Obito. I don't know how you're controlling him, but if he were truly Ishiki, he would have killed me instantly. Obito scratched his chin, smirking slightly. So, you saw through it, huh? He and Ishiki turned toward her, speaking in unison. Tell me, should we control you as well? Chapter 290, Infinite Tsukuyomi. Two beings of different races. Yet they wore identical eerie smiles. And in perfect synchronization, they spoke the same words. Forget Kaguya, this even made Madara feel uncomfortable. With an almost pitiful expression, Kaguya lowered her gaze, her delicate lips parting slightly in grievance. It seems I mistook you for someone else. You truly are Akatsuki Ashiki. Madara. Obito burst into laughter. Ha ha ha. He hadn't expected this 1,000-year-old noblewoman to be so amusing. With a chuckle, Obito remarked, honestly, Kaguya, you're nothing like I imagined. Not just your personality, even your figure is different from those doji, ahem. Kaguya lifted her flawless face, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. I am sincere in my desire to cooperate with the two of you. Please, do not make things difficult for me. Obito tilted his head, flashing a mischievous smile. Haha, I was just messing with you, Kaguya. We're allies now. Naturally, I wouldn't lay a hand on you. Whether Kaguya was truly distressed or simply putting on an act, whether her words were sincere or forced, none of that mattered to Obito. All that mattered was making her understand one thing. That he could control her as he pleased. A smart woman like her wouldn't do anything foolish again. Alright then, let's get started, Kaguya. Very well. The trio's figures floated in the sky, gradually approaching the moon. Akatsuki Obito trailed leisurely behind, keeping a close watch on Kaguya. If she made any sudden moves, he would suppress her without hesitation. As they neared the moon, the celestial body loomed ever larger. And just as they were about to break through the atmosphere, Kaguya suddenly spoke. This distance is sufficient. However, to proceed, I will require your assistance. Kaguya, here's the plan. Obito was the first to place a hand on Kaguya's delicate shoulder, smiling as he continued. I need you to construct a unified dream for everyone. Make them understand that their true enemies are not each other, but invaders from beyond this world. Kaguya gave a slight nod, responding with grace, understood. I can do that. Madara scoffed but placed his hand on Kaguya as well. KRRK. The long, blood red on Kaguya's forehead began to shift. The eye slowly twisted and expanded, forcing itself open as though attempting to break free from its confinement. A Rinne Sharingan with 9 Tomo. The eye that would awaken the dream of infinity. Kaguya focused her gaze on the moon, murmuring softly. Infinite Tsukuyami, illuminate the world. 9 pitch-black Tomo surfaced on the moon's surface. The once serene, silvery moon was soon dyed crimson, emanating an eerie, otherworldly glow. At that moment, people across the world noticed the change in the sky. Look! That's... What's going on? Why is the moon turning red? In a small village in the land of demons, an elder's face turned pale, his voice trembling as he addressed those beside him. A blood moon! This is an omen of great calamity. Throughout history, every blood moon has been followed by chaos, disasters, and war. Some people were visibly shaken. Others scoffed at the superstition. Old man, you're overthinking it. This is just a natural phenomenon. The elder sighed, leaning on his staff. Young one, do not be so quick to dismiss it. I once read an ancient record. In the 130th year of the founding era, a blood moon appeared. The world's energy was severed, its life force drained, as if it had fallen into the depths of hell. Hearing such a dire warning, the skeptical man hesitated. He looked up at the moon again. Huh? He frowned, scratching his head in confusion. He could have sworn he saw a massive, ghostly figure looming over the world. Shaking his head, he muttered, must be my imagination acting up after listening to the old man. But at that moment, a loud cry rang out. Holy shit! Look at the sky! Doesn't it seem like there's some woman staring down at us? Am I just that lonely, or does even the moon look kind of alluring now? Someone else chimed in. Dude, I swear I see a woman's face too. And that moon eye thing, it's on her forehead. high above. Obito narrowed his eyes at Kagaya and asked, Kagaya, we cast infinite Tsukuyomi together. So why is it only your face that's being projected? Kagaya blinked in confusion, not quite understanding why this mattered. But seeing his dissatisfaction, she waved a hand casually, slightly delaying the jutsu to give him a turn in the spotlight. Back in the land of demons? The previously vocal man gasped again. Wait, why did that chick suddenly turn into a guy? And why does he look so pervy? But, I mean, he still looks kinda handsome. Slurp, gulping sound. In Konoha, people who had been anxious about the blood moon and Kagaya's projection suddenly froze at the new image. An awkward silence filled the village before a wave of confusion erupted. Bro, look! The fifth Hokage ascended to the heavens. Obito, what kind of nonsense are you pulling now? Husband, if you're not home watching little Hagoromo, what are you doing up there? Shikahisa, what do you think about this? Ugh, such a drag. You keep asking me what I think with my eyes. This is insane, Obito. That's the coolest thing ever. Obito, is it finally time to begin that plan? 1 minute should be enough. Satisfied, Kagaya let the jutsu continue. Her Rinne Sharingan and the blood moon simultaneously unleashed a dazzling white light. The moment the eerie glow bathed the land, night turned to day. All noise ceased in an instant. Everyone stared blankly at the sky, their eyes morphing into the spiraling pattern of the Rinnegan. Congratulations! You have received a temporary Rinnegan trial pass. The entire shinobi world was now trapped in an endless dream. No matter where they were, human or animal, all were drawn into the illusion crafted by the trio. With Obito and Madara's support, Kagaya clapped her hands together and chanted in a clear, sweet voice. Divine, tree world birth. Massive roots burst forth across the land. Towering trunks shot skyward, their branches stretching far and wide, covering the world. Silken tendrils extended from the branches, gently wrapping around each dreamer, cocooning them like fruit hanging from the tree. With the entire world ensnared in the dream. The next step was to harvest their chakra and cultivate a new fruit. Finally, I can reclaim my strength. Playing with a strand of her silver hair, Kagaya turned to Obito with a gentle smile. So then, how much chakra shall we take? Obito stroked his chin in thought. Can't be too greedy. Let's just take a small portion each. After a moment's hesitation, he gave a number. How about 90%? Kagaya? Madara. That's the end of this tale for now. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the finale. Peace.